He vaguely sensed something. Jiaying, let your brother Biao be alone for a while, Professor Zhang said softly. Shen Tao was silent. He subconsciously reached for his pocket to get a cigarette but only found a lighter. He smiled bitterly. Yeah, it had been days without a smoke. The soldier from the truck got down too. Standing beside it, he gripped his steel rifle tightly, his knuckles turning white. The soldier who had gone to search also stopped, standing among the zombie corpses, staring at the store Biaozi had entered. Only a few seconds passed. Thud. A soft sound came from the store, like a table had been knocked over. Shen Tao walked toward the store in silence. Zhang Jiaying cried out loud and then quickly covered her mouth with both hands. Jiang Lushur sighed, grabbed his gun, and followed. The door opened. Biaozi lay in a pool of blood. In his chest, a three-edged army knife was stuck deep, blood gushing out. His gun was beside him, unused, they didn't have many bullets left. Shen Tao didn't speak. He picked up the bundle Biaozi carried. There wasn't much inside, just an empty wallet. Inside were two photos. One was a family photo of Biaozi, two middle-aged parents with kind smiles. The other was of a girl, plainly dressed, with long black hair tied in a thick braid, clearly a village girl. At that moment, Jiang Lushur felt a pang in his heart. Everyone has their story. In times of peace, when someone dies, there are family and friends to preserve their story. But in this broken world, when a person dies, and their family is also gone, who will remember their story? The sun set. The remaining sunlight was like blood. Jiang Lushur quietly watched Shen Tao and the others place another recovered corpse inside the store. Shen Tao put the photo in Biaozi's chest pocket and sealed the door. A fire lit up, and the shop burned in the flames. The firelight reflected on Shen Tao's iron-like face, and now, this tough soldier's eyes were wet. Behind him, a few comrades took off Biaozi's army cap and placed it before the blazing fire. The military emblem with the wheat ears seemed to shine especially bright in the flames. Shen Tao pulled out a bottle of clean water from his waist. Brother, I know you like to drink a little. Times are hard, we've got no booze. I'll pour some water to see you off. A stream of water splashed to the ground. The blood on the ground stirred, slowly mixing with the flow. We don't have the means to bury you. Today, let this battlefield be your tomb, let the military emblem be your gravestone. No liquor, but clean water to send you off. May you be a hero in life, and a heroic spirit in death. Brother, rest well. Under the setting sun, before the blazing flames, 3 soldiers stood among the corpses, facing the small army cap, and stood at attention with a sharp salute, Pa. Jiang Lushur silently watched this scene. A military emblem as the gravestone, a battlefield as the tomb, this might be the final resting place for warriors of the apocalypse. Night was falling, and Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan were hurrying to cut up the meat of the mutated python. Brother Jiang. Zhang Hai suddenly shouted with surprise and ran over, handing Jiang Lushur a clean, crystal-clear nucleus. A level 2 mutant nucleus. Jiang Lushur immediately became a bit excited. When he took the nucleus in his hand, he felt a warm and smooth sensation. This level 2 mutant nucleus was about the size of a ping-pong ball. At first glance, it looked blood-red, but under light, you could see inside were fine, vein-like red lines forming a regular radial pattern, glowing faintly red. The size and color made it easily distinguishable from a level 1 mutant nucleus. I'll take this nucleus. You two take 100 pounds of the meat each, and the rest goes to Zhuiying. This mutated python was huge. Even after removing skin and bones, it could yield nearly a ton of meat. That was a lot. After all, this was level 2 mutant beast meat, which was on a whole different level from level 1 mutant meat. Although the python was big, as a snake, it still couldn't compare in volume to something like a mutant wild boar. And the danger level of a mutant beast wasn't based on size. This level 2 mutated python didn't produce much meat, but it was very difficult to kill. In this battle, it mainly relied on Ying driving, and Jiang Lushur and Jiang Zhuiying doing the fighting. Jiang Lushur already felt he owed Zhuiying lately, so after taking the most valuable nucleus, he gave her the largest share of meat. As for Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan, though their combat power was low, they always handled the dirty and tiring work. They had been very hardworking, so Jiang Lushur felt it was right to give them a share. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan felt a bit embarrassed when they heard this arrangement, but they didn't act pretentious, they just worked even harder. The python was so huge that just the blood from skinning it stained the entire street red. If they didn't hurry, not only zombies but even mutant beasts could be attracted. Thanks, brother, Jiang Zhuiying said cheerfully. She didn't care how it was distributed, what was hers was Jiang Liushur's, and if Jiang Lushur had food, would she ever go hungry? Jiang Lushur stored away the level 2 mutant nucleus, feeling great. He still needed to think about how to use it. At that moment, Shen Tao came over. His eyes were still a bit red, but his expression had returned to normal. As a hardened soldier, even if he felt grief, he could suppress it. Your surname is Jiang, right? I'll just call you Brother Jiang, Shintao greeted Jiang Lushi. He had also seen Zhang Hai pull out the nucleus. So it really was a level 2 mutant beast. Captain Shen, you've seen a level 2 mutant nucleus before? Jiang Lushi asked in surprise. Saw one once in Zhonghai District 1, Shintao replied. But this thing is rare. If you're willing to sell, you could take it to Zhonghai District 1 and sell it to the military, we'll definitely give you a good price. As he said this, Shintao revealed a bit of envy. Even though they were soldiers, if they acquired extra resources or hunted mutant beasts during missions, they could keep the rewards. So much level 2 mutant meat, and a level 2 mutant nucleus, if they had gotten it, it wouldn't just be a side profit, it'd be a windfall. Shintao was also an ability user and needed mutant meat to evolve. Let's talk about it later. Most survivors would trade a level 2 nucleus for weapons or supplies, but Jiang Lushi had no plans to sell it, so he only smiled. Then he asked, puzzled, isn't it called Zhonghai Safe Zone? What's Zhonghai District 1? Zhonghai Safe Zone has limited space. Many institutions are based there, so a safe area was set up nearby called Zhonghai District 1, to house some survivors. Now, with survivor teams arriving from surrounding areas, a special acquisition department has been set up in District 1 for trading with survivor teams. I know there's a satellite base in Jinling, but to be honest, the variety of weapons and supplies is still much better in Zhonghai District 1, Shintao said. But after he finished speaking, seeing the faint smile on Jiang Lushi's face, Shintao felt a bit awkward. Saying there was limited space, actually, all the living spots in Zhonghai Safe Zone had already been allocated to the powerful and elite. Brother Jiang, I'll be direct. We're down to just 3 people. We can't escort Professor Zhang and his granddaughter to Zhonghai Safe Zone safely anymore. I'd like to ask your group to help escort them. There's still quite a distance to Zhonghai Safe Zone. The military will provide rewards based on the difficulty. Brother Jiang, are you willing? Shintao finished speaking but wasn't very confident. Teams like Jiang Lushi's, with such strong individual strength, might not even be interested in safe zones. Especially survivor teams who had built their own forces, they were even less interested. That's why Shintao had emphasized the acquisition department in District 1 and offered rewards, hoping to win Jiang Lushi over. Zhonghai Safe Zone. Jiang Lushi thought of the evolution crystals the military was researching, and also of Li Yusin. If there was a chance, he did plan to visit Zhonghai Safe Zone in the future. But right now, he still had things to do. However, that moment earlier when Biaozi took his life, and the way the soldiers sent him off, had touched something in Jiang Lushi's heart. What's the reward you're offering? Jiang Lushi asked. He was already interested in Zhonghai Safe Zone, and if there were rewards, even better. Since these rewards weren't from Shintao's group but from the military or government, Jiang Lushi had no reason not to take them. Weapons, whether bullets, guns, or grenades, whatever you need, Shintao said. Don't worry, normally you won't need to fight. Just let us follow behind you. We'll handle regular zombies ourselves. If there's a horde or mutant beasts, we'll stick close and fight together. Survivor teams all wanted weapons, so Shintao offered weapons and ammo as rewards. Jiang Lushi shook his head. I don't need those, I want mutant nuclei. What he lacked most now were mutant nuclei. Even with 1 level 1 and 1 level 2 nucleus in hand, it was far from enough. He needed nuclei for many things. Shintao was stunned, but didn't ask much. After thinking for a moment, he said, the military doesn't sell mutant nuclei, we're collecting them ourselves. How about 3? 3 level 1 mutant nuclei. 3? Jiang Lushi had cleared out the black market before and only got 4. 3 was already a lot, especially since they'd mostly just be following. Escorting them back could also let him take Ran Xiyu to Zhonghai Safe Zone too. Jiang Lushi wanted to know the current situation and how far the military's research had gone. Alright, but I'll need to take a detour, Jiang Lushi said. Detour? No problem, up to you, Shintao agreed without hesitation. Where to? Jinling Port, Jiang Lushi said. Shintao paused, why go there? Get ready. We're leaving soon. Jiang Lushi said as he turned and walked toward the minibus. Shintao stood there, scratching his head in confusion. Was he going to search for supplies? But Jiang Lushi had agreed to his request, which made Shintao very happy. This survivor team was stronger than theirs even when they had full numbers. Following them, they should be able to reach Zhonghai Safe Zone safely. After cutting off all the mutated python meat, the team immediately moved to a relatively open area. They would rest here for the night. After a while, Shintao personally brought over 3 Type 95 rifles. They were retrieved from corpses, and after wiping off the blood, he brought them over. Shintao said that his team already had one gun per person, so they couldn't use these guns. He insisted that Jiang Lushi accept them. In Shintao's view, although Jiang Lushi's team was strong, their consumption was also high. For ability users, especially Jiang Lushi and Jiang Zhuiying, who were extremely powerful, needed a lot of mutant beast meat to maintain their strength. They wouldn't spend it on extra guns. Since Jiang Lushi didn't want firearms as a reward, these 3 guns were a good supplement. Jiang Lushi saw that he was persistent and accepted them. Take the guns and store them, Jiang Lushi said. Responded, then dragged out a large bag. This bag was just a common woven sack. Before, Jiang Lushi used to keep a pile of supplies on the roof of the vehicle. Later, they were stored in the storage space, but the woven bag was kept. Why take out this sack? It looked stuffed and was probably filled with miscellaneous items. Maybe to take out a pouch or something to hold these 3 guns. Shintao felt emotional. Guns were indeed a huge asset to a survivor team, and they treasured them. At that moment, swiftly unzipped the bag. Damn! The smiling expression on Shintao's face instantly froze, and the corner of his eye twitched. Good heavens, so many guns! Previously, Jiang Lushi had collected quite a few guns from the black market and stored them in this bag. Jiang Lushi didn't hide it. These weapons might make survivors envious, but to soldiers, it wasn't a big deal. But Jiang Lushi didn't know, these guns didn't make Shintao greedy, but rather dumbfounded. So this sack was used to store guns. This survivor team was too damn rich. No wonder Jiang Lushi wasn't interested in firearms, just this pile of guns was enough to equip his team twice over. Why would he want more guns? And inside the sack, there were also grenades, bullets, light machine guns. So many guns and ammo, what a fortune, just thrown into a sack. Thinking of his previous thoughts, Shintao couldn't help but twitch at the corners of his mouth. Placed the 3 rifles inside, zipped up the bag again, and Shintao finally withdrew his gaze. Brother Jiang, you're going to Jinlingport, right? I can guide you part of the way, Shintao said. He had come for another matter. Isn't this road going to Jinlingport? Jiang Lushi asked. This route was planned by Sun Quan. This road does lead to Jinlingport. It's relatively close and easy to reach, but we specially cleared another road when we came. That way is safer, with no obstructions, and no blocked cars, Shintao said. They had come by military truck, which was even larger than the minibus. If they could get through, then of course the minibus could too. This way, they also wouldn't have to pass through parts of the city. That's great. Then I'll trouble you, Jiang Lushi nodded. Haha, no big deal. Don't mention it. I'll head back then, Shintao said. They had brought along jerky and such, and were getting ready to eat. At that moment, a girl's voice called out, "Dinner's ready." Then the door of the vehicle opened, and a beautiful girl stood there with a plate of fragrant mutant beast meat. Shintao had been standing by the door and only saw the driver's cabin. He hadn't expected this was actually a camper van. A minibus modified to have such speed and power, even fitted with a ram, that was already impressive. But it turned out to be a camper too. And it had a kitchen. And the girl was really beautiful, with distinctive gray eyes. Shintao had already seen 3 girls in Jiang Lushi's vehicle, each of them beautiful. He knew one was Jiang Lushi's sister, but the other 2. Shintao truly felt emotional. He had strength, a camper, and beautiful women. Jiang Lushi's life didn't look like the apocalypse at all. It was carefree to the point of envy, jealousy, and hate. By the way, I don't know if I should ask. Is Brother Jiang seeking mutant nuclei because you know the Zhonghai Safe Zone Research Lab is studying them? Shintao was about to leave but suddenly asked. Jiang Lushi glanced at him, then nodded. Yes. There was nothing to hide. No wonder, Shintao nodded and turned around. Professor Zhang. Professor Zhang and his granddaughter Zhang Jiaying quickly came over. Zhang Jiaying had long wanted to come look but was too shy. Now that she came, she couldn't wait. Her big eyes stared curiously at Jiang Lushi and the minibus. Seeing the camper interior, she let out a surprised, "Wow." Zhang Jiaying had been strictly raised since childhood. After the apocalypse, she hadn't gone through much, so her thoughts were pure, and she didn't hide her emotions. Professor Zhang, elderly and steady, smiled and nodded to Jiang Lushi. Professor Zhang is the expert we brought back to study mutant nuclei, Shintao introduced. Jiang Lushi was stunned and looked at Professor Zhang. He naturally knew the Zhonghai Safe Zone had gone to great effort and risk to bring back this professor because of his knowledge. Though the apocalypse had come, it didn't mean the world would always stay in apocalypse. To defeat zombies, defeat the virus, and rebuild civilization, it wasn't enough to rely on the military and ability users. What was needed were knowledgeable researchers like Professor Zhang. Professor Zhang was an academician at the Institute of Microbiology, Chinese Academy of Sciences, highly respected, and an authority in virus research, Shintao said. I don't deserve that, Professor Zhang waved his hand. I've communicated with some professors from Zhonghai Safe Zone via radio. I'll keep it simple so you don't get bored. Evolution of ability users needs large amounts of energy. Mutant nuclei contain concentrated energy, they're the essence of the mutant beast. All the beast meat combined doesn't compare to one nucleus. And inside the nucleus, there's a special substance not found in the meat, with even stronger energy. But the nucleus can't be directly eaten, if swallowed, it won't be digested. So we extract the essence inside, and ability users consume it. That can greatly speed up evolution. Professor Zhang explained clearly. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan standing in the back understood too. Jiang Lushi nodded. So, mutant nuclei would become even more valuable in the future. He planned to trade all those weapons for mutant nuclei when he reached Zhonghai District 1. Otherwise, if prices kept rising, he might not afford them anymore. Thinking of this, Jiang Lushi felt a bit annoyed. He just happened to need a large number of mutant nuclei. This price hike was most frustrating for him. After chatting a bit more, Shintao and the others went back to rest. Jiang Lushi sat in the driver's seat and took out the level 2 nucleus again. In this apocalypse, unimaginable danger could appear at any time. When there's a chance to get stronger, it must be done immediately. He had already decided how to use this level 2 nucleus. Within the starseed, a level 2 mutant nucleus could be exchanged for quite a lot. Activating the energy crystal extraction lab would allow direct extraction of energy crystals, with much better quality than the mutant crystals extracted by the military. And it wouldn't be limited to just Jiang Lushi alone. Jiang Lushi really wanted to activate this energy crystal extraction lab. The control-type ability could manipulate all kinds of energy, wind, fire, thunder, lightning, which Jiang Lushi also greatly desired. But Jiang Lushi already had brain domain evolution, plus triple agility boost, and he still hadn't fully adapted to them, hadn't trained them to the level of instinct. Wanting too much only leads to poor results. Though he wanted abilities, Jiang Lushi chose to painfully give them up for now. What he needed most now was to improve his physical constitution. Triple agility allowed his body's reaction speed to keep up with his evolved brain domain, but without enough physical strength, Jiang Lushi wouldn't last long. A machine with speed, but weak structure, would wear out even faster. But more importantly, improving his physical strength would give Jiang Lushi greater self-preservation ability. At the very least, if the base vehicle had a problem, or he had to get out, he wouldn't be so nervous and fearful like now. There were 2 ways to improve physical strength. One was to enhance physical fitness, the other was to activate a bloodline. Jiang Lushi wanted to use both methods on himself, but compared to strengthening physical fitness, the effects of activating a bloodline were greater. Jiang Lushi connected to the starseed and opened the bloodline activation options. His gaze swept over each bloodline, then stopped on the Blood Evolution Bloodline option. The Blood Evolution Bloodline was similar to porphyria, but only similar. In fact, Jiang Lushi had once heard a theory that porphyria, or even cancer, might actually be the result of human evolution and bodily mutation. It's just that at this stage, such evolution was fatal. Cancer cells could divide and proliferate infinitely, transform, and destroy normal cells. But only the powerful heart muscle was almost unaffected by cancer cells. This showed how powerful the blood mutation bloodline could be. If all body muscles were like heart muscles, even cancer wouldn't occur. Some scientists even considered cancer cells as a key to human immortality. They studied how cancer cells bypass the telomere limit to replicate endlessly. If that technology succeeded, it could be used to extend human life. The blood evolution bloodline evolved the circulatory system without side effects, making the host's blood circulation much stronger, a true human evolution. This brought with it great strength, speed, endurance, and terrifying recovery. This was what moved Jiang Lushi the most. In the apocalypse, with a lack of medicine and harsh conditions, even a stab wound, not hitting a vital spot, could lead to death by infection. Even if not fatal, the loss of mobility due to injury would leave survivors extremely vulnerable during the long recovery. Ordinary people already had weak bodies. Once injured, how could they fight against zombies or mutant beasts? So the importance of recovery ability was self-evident. Jiang Lushi had already thought it over. When he sat down in the driver's seat, he had made up his mind. He would activate the blood evolution bloodline. Click. The slot opened. The level 2 mutant nucleus he had just gotten, not even warmed up yet, was placed into the slot. As the slot retracted, the starseed's voice immediately sounded, level 2 mutant nucleus detected. The following options can be activated. The list of options appeared. Jiang Lushur looked calm and said in his mind, "Activate blood evolution bloodline. Scanning host's body condition? Scan complete." A full body scan projection of Jiang Lushur appeared on the starseed interface, along with all his physical data. Including heart rate, blood pressure, etc., all sorts of dense numbers were displayed. Blood evolution bloodline selected. Configuring gene evolution serum. Jiang Lushur originally thought this would take a long time, at least several hours, but surprisingly, only 15 minutes later, the starseed prompted that the gene evolution serum was ready. A nearly transparent, pale pink liquid appeared in Jiang Lushur's hand. He just looked at it briefly and then drank it without hesitation. A few seconds later, Jiang Lushur suddenly felt a strange sensation in his body. Thump thump! Jiang Lushur felt all the sounds around him fade away, with only his heartbeat growing louder and louder. Gradually, it was as if the heartbeat echoed next to his ears, loud like urgent drumming through headphones. Jiang Lushur's body lost strength. His limbs were numb and immobile. A burning sensation rose all over, even from the palms and soles of his feet. Veins bulged under his skin, and he could almost see the blood flowing. His blood circulation was accelerating. Blood from the heart passed through large, medium, and small arteries, into the capillaries throughout the body, then through small, medium, and large veins, returning to the heart. This cycle takes about 20 seconds under normal conditions. But during bloodline activation, Jiang Lushur's blood circulation speed was far beyond that of normal people. On the starseed scan interface, Jiang Lushur could clearly see the changes in his body's real-time data. His red and white blood cells, all blood cells, underwent mutation and evolution. His blood's oxygen content increased. Normally, 100 milliliters of arterial blood contains about 19 milliliters of oxygen, and 100 milliliters of venous blood contains about 14 milliliters. But Jiang Lushur's blood oxygen content was 3 times higher than that. For ordinary people, if too much oxygen enters the bloodstream, it causes oxygen toxicity. First, they feel euphoria, then respiratory suppression, slower breathing, poor CO2 output, lowered oxygen pressure in blood, and in severe cases, coma or death. But Jiang Lushur's blood cells had evolved. His high oxygen levels had no side effects. Increased blood oxygen meant full-body physical improvement. Athletes have higher blood oxygen than average people. Many train at high-altitude locations with low oxygen to increase oxygen-carrying ability. Some triathletes even draw blood and refrigerate it before competition, then re-inject it the next day to boost performance. This blood transfusion is also to raise blood oxygen levels. This process lasted over half an hour. When Jiang Lushur suddenly jumped up from his seat, the blood evolution bloodline had been fully activated. He clenched his fists and exhaled a long breath. From his nostrils, 2 faint white streams of air shot out like arrows, reaching over a foot in length. Seeing this, Jiang Lushur was startled himself. Damn, if my breathing is like this from now on, won't I become a base vehicle myself? Emitting exhaust gas. But Jiang Lushur was only startled for a moment. He quickly realized that just because he let out a long breath, it appeared that way. Once his breathing returned to normal, he only felt it was a bit deeper, no more air arrow shot out. Jiang Lushur inhaled deeply again, then began holding his breath. He wanted to know how long he could sustain holding a single breath now. Before, when Jiang Lushur swam, he could hold his breath for a little over a minute, considered average. Time passed, minute by minute. He quickly exceeded his original limit, and yet he felt no discomfort. 5 minutes passed, and Jiang Lushur began to slowly exhale. Normally, after exhaling, a person can't hold much longer and soon starts to feel dizzy and heavy-headed. In fact, even though no new oxygen was being inhaled, his blood still had oxygen, and the body has self-protective regulation. When lacking oxygen, blood vessels in less critical organs or tissues constrict to reduce consumption, ensuring that important tissues, like the brain, still get blood and oxygen. But brain cells are very sensitive to hypoxia, so it becomes uncomfortable. From that point until about 5 minutes later, the brain starts undergoing irreversible damage due to oxygen deprivation. But when Jiang Lushur exhaled, he showed no symptoms of ischemia or hypoxia. Jiang Lushur blinked. He almost felt as though he were being mocked. The oxygen content in his blood was so high that supplying his body and brain was no problem at all. The second hand ticked, 7 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed, 20 minutes passed. Before the apocalypse, the world record for longest breath holding was held by a German, at 15 minutes 2 seconds, Guinness record. That record was easily broken by Jiang Lushur. 20 minutes. A full 20 minutes, only then did Jiang Lushur finally feel a bit dizzy. Holding breath for 20 minutes, before the apocalypse, that was unthinkable. But after the apocalypse, Jiang Lushi activated the blood evolution bloodline via the starseed and did it effortlessly. Jiang Lushi felt he could hold on longer, but it was unnecessary, he already had his answer. He was very satisfied with the result. With blood cell mutation and evolution, Jiang Lushi's physical constitution would undergo a comprehensive transformation. This change, while not as dramatic or obvious as a werewolf or bear bloodline, would have far greater potential. Jiang Lushi then used his brain domain ability. Before, when he activated his brain domain ability, he couldn't sustain it long and would feel dizzy and heavy-headed, because the blood supply was insufficient to support such intense brain cell activity. But now, after activating the blood evolution bloodline, not only could he last longer, he felt his brain domain ability also improved. It wasn't that time slowed, rather, his eyes captured more environmental detail, and his brain could analyze more. This allowed Jiang Lushi to notice more changes around him in battle. His brain's information processing sped up, and his neural reaction speed became faster. This blood evolution bloodline is truly powerful. Jiang Lushi was very satisfied. He never cared much for turning into a werewolf or bear bloodline. Blood cell evolution was the body's own evolution, just like his brain domain ability. And after activating the bloodline, Jiang Lushi somehow felt hungry. "Zhuiying, what about tonight's leftover roast meat?" Jiang Lushi couldn't wait to replenish his energy. At first, Jiang Zhuiying just warmed the meat and put it in front of Jiang Lushi, then went to watch anime. But as Jiang Lushi kept eating, she kept heating it more, even recooking. She stopped watching anime and just watched Jiang Lushi. Even Ran Xiyu lifted her head from reading ebooks. Her expression changed from casual interest to surprise, then shock. The only one who didn't react was Ying. She already knew Jiang Lushi had activated the blood evolution bloodline. Plate after plate, all of today's newly acquired level 2 mutant beast meat went into Jiang Lushi's stomach. This level 2 mutant meat contained far more energy than level 1 meat. Zhang Hai and Sun Quan could only eat about 2 kilograms each before they were full, but Jiang Lushi ate 15 jin. His blood circulation was faster, his metabolism was faster, so his digestion naturally became stronger. The more mutant beast meat he ate, the more mutation energy he absorbed, and the faster his constitution and ability would increase. Not only Zhuiying and those others knew this, but Ran Xiyu also understood. Seeing Jiang Lushi devour so much level 2 mutant meat, disbelief filled Ran Xiyu's beautiful eyes. "Brother, how did your appetite grow so much?" Jiang Zhuiying widened her eyes and asked. "My mechanical modification ability improved somewhat, so my appetite got better too, I guess," Jiang Lushi said. "Improved?" Zhuiying didn't fully understand the difference in improvement of the mechanical modification ability, but seeing this much increase in appetite meant it must be powerful. Ran Xiyu didn't chime in, but in her heart she was also greatly surprised. Just a little improvement? The longer she interacted with Jiang Lushi, the more she felt that this boy, roughly her age, was growing stronger at a lightning pace. "All right, let's sleep," Jiang Lushi said. "Okay." Before Ran Xiyu could speak, Ying had already laid down on the sofa. She had a great figure. Even when lying down, her chest was high and firm, and her long, slender legs didn't even fully fit on the sofa, she had to curl sideways. In that sideways position, she was effectively sleeping face to face with Jiang Lushi. This posture made the white patch at her collar even more striking, like a mysterious ravine. Wearing Ying's underwear, which was not well fitted, one side revealed part of her smooth, fair breast. Ran Xiyu's eyes widened seeing Ying lie like that. That hot body was completely exposed. Even she felt a blush, as though the atmosphere in the cabin had become strange. And again, it was her? Could it be that for the rest of the way, she had to sleep on the ground with Jiang Lushi? Thinking of what it would feel like to sleep together at night, Ran Xiyu pinched the hem of her clothes and lowered her head. The road that Shintao and the others cleared was indeed very smooth to travel. Along the way, Shintao and the others couldn't help but be shocked again by the violence of the minibus. When encountering zombie hordes, it didn't slow at all, it just crashed through them. As long as there weren't large zombie hordes or mutant beasts, this minibus had absolutely no pressure dealing with zombies. At first, Shintao and the others kept their guns raised, ready to fight at any moment. But gradually they realized that following behind Jiang Lushi's minibus, they seldom had a chance to act. At first they couldn't adapt and remained tense, but eventually, Shintao had to accept the fact that they really had nothing to do. After several days of continuous fights, always under threat of death, suddenly things became easier. Not only did Shintao feel unaccustomed, but even Zhang Jiaying, the protected girl, felt out of place. Though she didn't have to fight, watching Shintao and them fiercely battle zombies all the way, she felt nervous and fearful. Zombies kept lunging, giving her the sense that the next second they might burst into the vehicle. But with the team following Jiang Lushi, it was totally different. Those zombies were simply knocked aside. Following closely, they saw zombies being knocked to death or flung away. At noon, the convoy successfully reached Jinling Port. Jinling Port was the country's largest inland river port. Day after day, countless cargo ships entered and departed, and it handled huge volumes of goods. From afar, innumerable containers could be seen. The broad river surface was full of cargo ships. The tall port cranes had long ceased working. The entire port was quiet. That silence made one's heart tremble. "Do you know the exact location of that cargo ship?" Jiang Lushi asked. "Yes, I know." Ran Shiyu nodded. A batch of rolling drilling rigs was not a small deal. As the successor of Ran Corporation, Ran Shiyu would not neglect such a business. In fact, she had been responsible for this deal. Although she personally didn't carry out the operation, her subordinates did, but Ran Shiyu's memory was sharp. Even just from reading reports, she remembered all related details. Jinling Port has 8 port zones. Different goods are loaded and unloaded according to classification in different zones. From the reports I saw, this cargo ship should be docked in Longwan Port Zone. That's one of the 2 zones designated for containers, Ran Shiyu said. Good. Jiang Lushi nodded. According to the signage, they soon found Longwan Port Zone. Here, the number of zombies was not especially many. Floating on the river were some containers, and many corpses. The corpses had long since swollen. What made one's scalp tingle was that these floating bodies weren't whole, they were dismembered limbs. The convoy drove through the port zone. Ran Shiyu watched carefully outside the window. Soon she pointed at a massive cargo ship and said, "It's that one." "So large?" Jiang Zhuiying exclaimed. Jiang Lushi was also surprised. He had seen many cargo ships north of the river, but none comparable to this. This cargo ship was like a huge skyscraper, standing quietly on the broad river surface. This is a car transport ship. Its total length is about 130 meters, height equivalent to 9 stories. It has 9 decks. The vehicle deck, when unfolded, has an area exceeding 4 standard football fields, and can carry 4,000 cars at once. "The mining truck you want is on it," Ran Shiyu said. She had worried the ship might leave. After interacting with Jiang Lushi, she found that although he seemed a bit cold, he didn't fly into anger readily. He was relatively easy to get along with. Even if the ship left, it likely wouldn't be because of her. But Jiang Lushi saved her, gave her food, clothes, let her bathe. Ran Shiyu sincerely hoped everything would go smoothly, and that Jiang Lushi would get that truck. Only, how would that truck drive on roads? Ordinary bridges might not support a mining truck's weight. Of course, these were only thoughts in her mind. She did not ask. If Jiang Lushi desired such a vehicle, he naturally had use for it. It was none of her business. After disposing of a dozen or so zombies that had followed them, the minibus stopped not far from the cargo ship. The military truck followed and stopped beside. Shintao jumped out and asked, "Brother Jiang, what's your plan?" "I'm going to board that cargo ship," Jiang Lushi said. Shintao froze and looked up at the cargo ship. That cargo ship was really huge. He, a grown man, standing beneath it was as tiny as an ant. Shintao didn't know what Jiang Lushi was going up to find. Jiang Lushi himself didn't volunteer the reason, and Shintao didn't press him. "This ship is so large. We don't know what's inside. It might be risky. If Brother Jiang agrees, I'll go with you. I can stay behind with them to guard the car and protect Professor Zhang and the others," Shintao said. Having trailed behind Jiang Lushi all day with ease, Shintao felt the 3 level 1 mutant nuclei they spent were totally worth it. Now Jiang Lushi had something to do. Though it didn't strictly concern Shintao, he still offered his help. Jiang Lushi thought for a moment and nodded, okay. Though he had activated the blood evolution bloodline, he hadn't practiced it under real combat. It was safer to act cautiously. Shintao, being military, was more professional at terrain surveying and reconnaissance in unfamiliar, complex environments, just suitable for this. Ying and Jiang Zhuiying, and Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan also got out. Jiang Zhuiying carried her long sword, a weapon that made Shintao glance in surprise. A customized military weapon. As military personnel, Shintao recognized at a glance. That special alloy was only used by the military. Shintao again marveled, this survivor team was truly wealthy. They didn't use rifles or light machine guns, but even more expensive customized weapons. "Zhang Hai, you stay here too," Jiang Lushi said. Though zombies here were few, one could not be sure none would appear suddenly. Better to be safe. "Okay." Zhang Hai responded, grabbed his gun, and walked toward the military truck. The minibus had strong defense. Once the doors were closed, unless a mutant beast or large zombie horde appeared, it would be fine. Zhang Hai wasn't needed for guard duty. After stepping out, In closed the minibus's doors. Ran Shiyu sat inside the vehicle. She was a psychic-type ability user, her body was ordinary. It would be too dangerous for her to go out with them. Board the ship, Jiang Lushur said. They already saw an iron gate leaning against the shore. It was tightly closed, separating the cargo ship from the shore. Creak. As the iron gate opened, Sun Quan felt a sudden chill rise behind him. This was the first time this gate had been opened since the apocalypse. The car transport ship is actually a new type of vessel, somewhat resembling an aircraft carrier. Cars can drive right into the ship through two watertight doors, one at the stern, one on the right side. The door that Jiang Lushur's group entered through was one of those watertight doors. This door was much larger than those on ordinary ships. Once opened, it formed a movable anti-slip ramp. Compared to that door, Jiang Lushur's group looked very small. As they walked in, Shintao felt as if he were stepping into the dark, giant maw of a monster. Inside the ship there was no sound. Their footsteps on the steel deck sounded especially loud. The interior of the transport ship was very spacious and dark. At a glance, many cars were parked inside. Apart from carrying the jaw drill rigs from Rand Corporation and the mining truck from that mining company, the ship also transported many sedans. All luxury cars, Sun Quan muttered. He glanced over and saw many car emblems that before the apocalypse stood for wealth. These luxury cars, each worth millions once, now were like heaps of scrap. Even their modified freezer truck was worth more than many of these. Be careful, Shintao said. They proceeded slowly inside. Jiang Lushur watched his surroundings. The mining truck was very large and should stand out. But the ship was huge, its parking deck spanned 9 levels. He didn't yet know which level the mining truck would be on. The vehicles were parked densely, light was dim, and they had to be on guard for zombies suddenly leaping out. After walking for a bit, Jiang Zhuiying suddenly said, "It seems there are no zombies here." Actually, not just Zhuiying, the others also noticed. Logically, a group like theirs walking in should be like a chunk of fresh meat suddenly thrown in front of zombies. Even the sound of their footsteps should have drawn zombies out. But despite their vigilance, they didn't even see a shadow of a zombie. There seems to be a corpse over there. Shintao's eyes were sharp, spotting a sleeve sticking out from under a car. I'll go take a look. Shintao held his gun, walked over cautiously, scanning surroundings, bending to inspect the body. Soon he frowned and looked up. This is a zombie corpse, torn apart at the waist. But the key is this, Brother Jiang, come look. Before he finished speaking, Jiang Lushur had already walked over. What Shintao meant was that luxury car. Half of it had been crushed flat. Those zombies are strong, why crush a car like that? Everyone stay alert, Jiang Lushur said, turning around. Though that car and the zombie corpse were eerie, it wasn't completely strange. During the time the ship was sealed, zombies might kill each other. But as they advanced further, reaching the second deck, Jiang Lushur gradually sensed something was wrong. They began to find more corpse remains, and mostly just naked bones. Some places still bore dents from crushing, in some spots, steel pipes as thick as arms were bent and twisted. And yet, no zombies appeared. Could it be that all the zombies on the ship killed each other and died out? Sun Quan guessed. But from his hesitant tone, even he didn't fully believe it. When they boarded, they had been prepared for zombie ambush. But now there was no ambush, they felt uneasy instead. So many zombie corpses, could they really all be from internal slaughter? Let's find that truck quickly, Jiang Lushur said. They walked farther. Jiang Lushur's eyes fell on a huge mining truck. They found it. At that moment, Jiang Lushur suddenly noticed Shintao hadn't moved. What's wrong? Jiang Lushur asked. He saw Shintao reach out, touching his forehead. Water? Shintao looked at his fingertip. The liquid was pale yellow, sticky, with a faint fishy stench. It definitely wasn't water. Suddenly Shintao raised his gun muzzle and looked upward. His scalp tingled. A gigantic snake was crawling above his head. Da-da-da. Shintao almost reflexively fired. Damn. To suddenly spot a mutant beast so silently overhead, who wouldn't be frightened? As a soldier, Shintao's calm lay in that although his heart nearly jumped out, he did not fire wildly. At such close range, every shot he fired struck the snake's body. The snake, which had been moving slowly, was suddenly struck and began to writhe violently, crawling with tremendous speed. Jiang Zhuiying rushed over, grabbed the chain, threw her long blade. The long blade and chain instantly glowed with blue-white electricity and shot toward the snake. The snake shrank from the electric strike, then accelerated its crawling, disappearing into the darkness in the blink of an eye. But in that flash of electricity, Jiang Lushur saw clearly the shape of the snake. He had thought when Shintao said, giant snake, that it would be another mutated python. But what he saw just now made him involuntarily shiver. He didn't see the full body, but he saw a huge maw filled with dense teeth and pink flesh, gross and terrifying. "It's wounded," Shen Tao said. At close range, the rifle bullets and electric attack must have hit it hard. But then Shen Tao suddenly let out a muffled moan. Not just him, Jiang Zhuing's face turned pale, and the weakest, Sun Kuan, clutched his chest. He felt something pressing on his chest. Not only was he nauseated, but his vision seemed to blur. Because of Jiang Liusher's boosted constitution, he was least affected, but even he felt a surge in his qi and blood. "What's happening? Why do I feel so bad?" Sun Kuan said. Jiang Liusher looked at the floor and saw the thick steel deck trembling slightly. Not just the floor, pipes and columns too were vibrating continuously. This was a 130-meter ship. How could such trembling occur? At that moment, another giant snake suddenly crawled from not far away at extreme speed. "That's not a snake." Jiang Liusher stopped Shen Tao from firing. When he first saw the maw, Jiang Liusher felt it didn't seem like a normal snake. Now he was sure. This giant snake, the ship's tremor, the sensation of qi and blood surging in his body, all signs, this was absolutely a big creature. One situation could cause phenomena like this. Jiang Liusher had once heard of a high-tech weapon called an infrasonic weapon. Infrasonic weapons emit frequencies below 20 Hz, causing resonance with the human body, making resonant organs or parts displace, deform, or even rupture, causing injury or death. Below 20 Hz, humans can't hear sounds in that frequency band. Every part of the human body has subtle rhythmic pulsations. Those pulsation frequencies are generally 2 to 16 Hz. For example, internal organs vibrate at 4 to 6 Hz, the head at 8 to 12 Hz, etc. These inherent human frequencies just fall within the infrasonic frequency range. Once a high-power infrasonic wave acts on the human body, it will cause strong resonance. In 19th century Europe, there were multiple tragedies where soldiers marched across a bridge in steppe, causing the bridge to resonate and collapse. If a sturdy bridge can be destroyed by resonance, how much more fragile is human flesh and blood? Before the apocalypse, infrasonic weapons were only conceptual and not in service. But what just happened made Jiang Liusher immediately think of infrasonic waves. Living beings that can emit infrasonic waves include crocodiles, elephants, even a tiger's roar can produce infrasonic waves. A tiger's roar is a kind of infrasonic attack, only around 18 Hz. It can cause misalignment in ear joints, cause resonance in internal organs, leading to reduced mobility. In severe cases, it can even frighten one into passing out. This giant creature before them, it had mastered infrasonic attack. Against such a monster, they had already lost most of their fighting ability before the fight began. All the zombies on the ship had become its food. They had just stepped into the monster's lair. By now, judging from the situation, the monster was enraged. Not only was it using infrasonic attacks, but every part of the ship emitted crack 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 sounds of friction and compression. These sounds came from all directions. It's unimaginable how huge this creature must be. "You guys retreat first. I'll be out soon," Jiang Liusher suddenly said. Before Shen Tao and the others could react, they saw Jiang Liusher and Ing sprint toward the mining truck. "Brother Jiang." Shen Tao felt a buzzing in his head. His nausea grew stronger. Even his robust body felt it. How could Jiang Liusher tell them to retreat first? But seeing Jiang Liusher and Ying's speed, Shen Tao was stunned. Shen Tao had been a soldier for over 10 years. He was very confident in his physical fitness, honed through countless trainings. His muscles were solid as iron. Jiang Liusher looked ordinary, no special training. Shen Tao had assumed that Jiang Liusher's ability had little to do with physical mutation. So when Jiang Liusher dashed out, Shen Tao intended to pull him back. At a time like this, he thought, still not running? I should pull him and run. But before he could move, Jiang Liusher was already over 10 meters away. What speed? Jiang Liusher's sprint speed was in no way slower than Shen Tao's full burst. Even Ing and Sun Kuan were stunned. Ying's eyes widened. How had her brother suddenly become a sprinter? "You guys retreat. I'll go support my brother." Ing didn't want to abandon Jiang Liusher. "No, brother Jiang is so fast." Before Shen Tao finished, Ing had already run forward. He had wanted to say Ing might slow Jiang Liusher, but from afar he saw a flash of electricity. Ing hurled her long blade. In an instant, a stream of electric current dozens of meters long flashed through the air like lightning, striking a giant shadow that flickered past. Incredible! Shen Tao had already seen Ing act at full strength once before, but that was in daylight. Now in this dim environment, the shock of the electricity was stronger. Electric arcs flashed around Ing. Her long hair was lifted by the arcs as if by wind. She looked like a goddess caught in a storm. Across 10 or so meters, with a wide attack range, Ying's cover worked very well. Let's fall back a bit more. Shen Tao ground his teeth and spoke. He had thought his athleticism was an advantage. Worrying about this and that, in the end the one who should fear being a burden was himself. He and Sun Quan retreated first, while Jiang Lushi and Ying raced toward the mining truck. Ying's constitution was already very good, he had said it so originally. What amazed Jiang Lushi was that in full sprint, his speed was nearly on par with Ying. He had been a normal person, his running speed average. Now after activating the blood evolution bloodline, such a leap in capability, how could he not be pleased? His blood oxygen content was now so high, stronger even than the effect of stimulants. Enhanced blood circulation strengthened the body. In time, when his muscles were as tough as heart muscle, fatigue would be meaningless to him. Hurry, hurry, hurry! Jiang Lushi sensed the monster had gone berserk. Electric light was frantically flashing behind them as proof. He likely had only seconds left. Within that time, he needed to scan the mining truck and dash it out. Starseed! Jiang Lushi shouted in his mind. He had already placed a level 1 mutant nucleus into the vehicle's slot earlier. The starseed was in his mind. Even if the base vehicle was away, he could still communicate with the starseed. Level 1 mutant nucleus detected. The following options can be activated. Activate secondary scan. Scan this mining truck. Jiang Lushi roared mentally. To scan the mining truck, the starseed didn't need the base vehicle. Secondary scan activated. Target detected. This vehicle model meets standards. Scan starting. Jiang Lushi watched the scan percentage on the panel. He had never felt a number change so slowly. Faster, faster. Crack, crack, crack. Bang. Jiang Lushi saw that the ship wall at his side had caved in. This was a massive cargo ship. That whole wall must be extremely strong, yet it was dented just like that. Scan progress, 90%, scan complete. Base vehicle obtained second form. That form is mining truck. Go! Jiang Lushi had no time to listen to the description. When the scan finished, the mining truck had vanished from its original position. If Shen Tao had seen this, his eyes would probably pop out. But right now it was urgent. Even Ying didn't notice. Seeing Jiang Lushi and the others rush back, Ying cried out and released yet another electric discharge. Instantly, in that area, electric snakes danced wildly in a 10-meter radius. She stood in the midst of the electric net, holding her blade, hair flying, stunning to behold. The decks inside the ship were steel and conductive. Ying here used her ability to the maximum. After releasing the electricity, she turned and ran. She knew she was slower than Jiang Lushi. She needed to run first so as not to hold them back. But at that moment, Jiang Lushi, while racing, suddenly accelerated and from behind scooped Ying in his arms, carrying her while sprinting. After the boost in his constitution, Jiang Lushi's strength was also much improved. Running while carrying Ying didn't slow him. Run! Jiang Lushi and Ying overtook Shen Tao and Sun Quan. Holy crap! Shen Tao was okay, he was mainly waiting for Sun Quan. But when he saw Jiang Lushi's group overtake them, his scalp tingled, it was unbelievable. When he saw Jiang Lushi carrying Ying, he didn't even know what to say. The group sprinted back the same route. When they got outside, they found Zhang Hai and the others in a state of shock. Zhang Hai had already returned to the freezer truck and was anxiously watching the watertight door, waiting for them to emerge. They turned around, and felt a rush of coldness. From the ship's hull hung many long, giant snakes, wrapping the entire ship like octopus tentacles. These giant snakes had huge mouths full of sharp teeth at their tips. This was clearly a gigantic aquatic monster. After the apocalypse, even aquatic life mutated into monstrous creatures. This beast swallowed the ship's zombies, probably ate many things underwater too. In a short time, it evolved to a terrifying form. Go! Jiang Lushi shouted. The monster didn't attack the vehicles on shore because it had been shot by Shen Tao, then struck severely by Ying's electricity. Its attention had been drawn to the ship. But looking at the monster's massive size, those 10 or so bullets and the discharges weren't even a scratch. If they didn't run now, they couldn't escape. Open the vehicle doors. Jiang Lushi shouted nonstop, carrying Ying as he dashed toward the minibus, and he mentally instructed the starseed to open the doors. They rushed to the vehicle. The door just opened in time, and the three of them leapt inside. Ying didn't stop, she dashed directly to the driver's seat and started it. Acceleration instantaneously kicked in. Zhang Hai jumped back onto the freezer truck, ready to run. Shen Tao shouted from afar, "Drive, drive." When the military truck started, he lunged forward, grabbed the truck's cabin, and was hauled inside by those already in it. Whoosh whoosh. The convoy raced crazily out of the port zone. From the window, Jiang Lushi saw the giant cargo ship, completely wrapped in the monster's coils, but he could not see the monster's full body. As the cargo ship began to tilt, this gargantuan vessel was forcibly dragged into the water. By the way, have the starseed scan the monster. Jiang Lushur finally had time to think of this. He could still see parts of the monster's body, so a scan should be possible. Scan level exceeds host permissions. Cannot scan. The starseed's response surprised Jiang Lushur. What level was this creature? It exceeded his current permissions? Yet this was the first time Jiang Lushur realized that as a host, he had limitations at his current stage. The starseed explained that his permissions were unlocked progressively as the base vehicle was upgraded. What exactly is that monster? Ran Shiyu said, her face pale. Jiang Lushur's expression darkened. He whispered, I don't know. The only fortunate thing is that this monster doesn't seem to come ashore. But as soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Lushur's body trembled. He realized he was somewhat weak. Jiang Lushur was exhausted because all the energy stored in his body had been used up. Although his physique had improved greatly, the amount of energy he needed to consume had also increased. It was just like how a base vehicle consumes more fuel after its power is boosted. Jiang Lushur figured that at his current rate of energy consumption, even though he had stored a lot of mutant beast meat, it would soon be gone. He guessed other superpowered people were the same. The stronger their evolution, the more they needed to eat. In the future, mutant beast meat would likely become more expensive. This mutant beast meat and mutant crystal cores would be the most important consumables in the future. I need to stock up more, but mutant crystal cores are still the top priority, Jiang Lushur thought to himself. He was relatively well off now, but his rate of consumption was also high. Compared to a truly comfortable and secure life, his supplies were still far from enough. Ing sped forward like a rocket, with Zhang Hai and the military truck following behind, stepping hard on the gas. The convoy quickly left the port area and then exited Jinling Port. Only after they were far away from Jinling Port did everyone finally breathe a sigh of relief. That monster had been too shocking. It felt just like when the apocalypse first broke out and they were escaping from zombies. It truly felt like surviving a disaster. Zhuing, fry some meat. Jiang Lushur spoke, then glanced at Ran Shiyu and Jiang Zhuing, who were still staring blankly at him, and said, I'm hungry. Oh. Jiang Zhuing snapped out of it and quickly turned to head into the kitchen. Brother, wait a bit. Ran Shiyu sat on the sofa, watching Jiang Lushur. What's wrong? Jiang Lushur asked. Nothing. Ran Shiyu paused, then said, sorry, I didn't expect something like that to happen. Earlier, while she was alone in the minibus, she had suddenly seen a giant snake rise from the water and wrap itself around the freighter. That kind of massive shock and fear, even when the disaster first started and she faced zombies, she had never experienced anything like that. On top of that, there was nausea, dizziness, blacking out. At that moment, she truly felt a chilling fear, as if she was about to be killed by the monster. Ran Shiyu had almost thought she would die right there, but unexpectedly, Jiang Lushur and the others had escaped in time. Jiang Lushur had saved her for the mining truck. Although the information she provided was correct, the freighter was still there. It had been occupied by the monster. Not only did they fail to retrieve the truck, but they also faced great danger. Because of this, Ran Shiyu felt very guilty. It's fine. A narrow escape, but no harm done. And besides, it's not your fault, Jiang Lushur said. But that mining truck, Ran Shiyu began. Jiang Lushur smiled and said nothing. Both Ran Shiyu and Shintao thought this trip had been for nothing. But only he and Ing knew, his base vehicle had already obtained its second form. Brother, the meat's ready. Jiang Zhuing brought out a big pot of meat. That pot alone weighed about 5 kilograms. Jiang Zhuing sat across from him, propping up her chin, watching Jiang Lushur calmly eat the entire pot of meat, not ravenously, but with ease. Want more? She asked. Yeah, a bit more, Jiang Lushur nodded. That first pot had only gotten him about half full. He figured he could easily eat another. Jiang Zhuing didn't say anything. She got up and went back into the kitchen. Soon, another fragrant pot of mutant beast meat was brought to the table. Mutant beast meat, even before the apocalypse, was a top-grade ingredient. With simple cooking, it became a delicacy. Jiang Lushur sniffed the meat aroma, picked up a piece, and put it in his mouth. The meat melted instantly, its flavor bursting out, almost making him want to swallow his tongue along with it. Piece after piece, Jiang Zhuying's eyes followed his chopsticks, tracking the movement between his mouth and the pot. This time, he ate even more than yesterday, altogether, about 10 kilograms. As Jiang Lushur's strength increased rapidly, his appetite was also growing at a terrifying rate. I'm done. Thanks, Zhuing, Jiang Lushur said with satisfaction, putting down his chopsticks. The earlier feeling of weakness had quietly disappeared while eating. With nearly 10 kilograms of mutant beast meat in his stomach, Jiang Lushur felt warm all over. A tingling sensation spread throughout his body. The feeling of strength and full recovery was simply amazing. After activating his bloodline evolution, the effect of eating mutant beast meat had become even stronger. He knew it was due to his greatly improved digestion ability. Jiang Zhuing blinked. She felt that her brother was changing more and more, becoming more mysterious, with more and more secrets. There were so many questions, but she didn't bother to ask them all. Anyway, the moment he had carried her and dashed off earlier, she had felt truly happy. Even though they were fleeing for their lives, she felt an incredible sense of safety. Her brother was getting stronger and stronger, she couldn't allow herself to fall behind too far. The convoy left Jinling Port and continued heading toward Zhonghai Safety Island. From Jinling to Zhonghai, the drive used to take 5 hours before the apocalypse when the highways were clear. But after the apocalypse, that time had at least doubled. By the time the convoy reached Zhonghai, it would already be the next morning. As the golden crow set in the west and the jade rabbit rose in the east, the convoy had just gotten on the highway and stopped at a rest station. Although the highway had been cleared, mutant beasts could still appear. And nighttime brought many unknown dangers, so most people avoided traveling after dark. After seeing the terrifying water monster at Jinling Port, Jiang Lushur had become even more cautious about this apocalypse. Even though Zhonghai was only a little over 4 hours away, Shentao and the others weren't in a rush. In the apocalypse, being too hasty, and not cautious, was just asking to die faster. The zombies and even the corpses in the rest stop had been cleared out, but there were still random items scattered on the ground, probably left behind by survivors who had once passed through here with the military. "We'll rest here tonight. I'll go scout ahead," Jiang Lushur said. "Okay, I'm going to grill some meat." Jiang Zhuing had already jumped out of the vehicle. Ran Shiyu stood up quietly before Jiang Lushur even said anything. "I'll go help," she said. In the blink of an eye, only Jiang Lushur and Ing were left in the car. Seeing the minibus suddenly start up and drive ahead, Shentao was puzzled. What's brother Jiang doing? But when he looked at Zhuing and the others, no one answered. Shentao scratched his head. It felt strange, but it was Jiang Liushur's business. "We brought dried meat too, mind if we use your fire to grill it?" Shentao asked with a smile, holding the meat. "Just grilling? That's no fun. We've got oil and everything, bring it here and I'll cook it for you," Zhang Hai replied, looking like a real chef now. He had a full grill set up ready. Shentao looked at the jars and bottles, twitching at the corner of his eyes. When his team went on missions, they were lucky to have cold, hard meat to chew. They rarely had the chance to grill or heat it up, let alone have soup or spices like Jiang Liushur's team. Just the smell was enough to make people drool. Zhang Jiaying leaned on the railing of the vehicle, her big eyes wide, staring eagerly. She hadn't had a proper meal in a long time. Last night they were still strangers, she had to gnaw on jerky while the aroma of cooked meat drifted through the air. Today, she could finally eat grilled meat. Meanwhile, Jiang Lushur and Ing had driven the minibus a kilometer away. Looking back from there, the rest stop was no longer visible. "Here's good," Jiang Lushur said. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel excited. What would the second form of the base vehicle be like? While inside the ship, because the situation was urgent, Jiang Lushur didn't even get a clear look at the mining truck. Now that he had the opportunity, he couldn't wait to see the base vehicle's second form. Jiang Lushur sat in the driver's seat and grabbed the steering wheel with both hands. Actually, after activating the second form and successfully scanning the mining truck, a new button appeared on the control panel of the minibus. Hidden beside the dashboard, this button slid open a seam when Jiang Lushur thought of it, and a black circular button rose up. Seeing that black button, Jiang Lushur inhaled gently. "Switch to second form." Jiang Lushur stretched out his hand and slammed the button. Click, a faint sound, yet he didn't see any obvious changes. But then, in his mind, a projection of the base vehicle appeared. Jiang Lushur felt that his field of vision was rising rapidly. Beneath him, the feel of the driver's seat changed. The steering wheel he held also changed. Compared to the minibus, the mining truck's steering wheel was much larger. The dashboard likewise changed, including the handbrake, the gear lever, all of them were changing. Sitting in the vehicle, Jiang Lushur saw inside and out that every detail of the base vehicle was transforming rapidly. In a way, it felt like playing a VR simulation game. His eyes perceived the internal changes, while the projection in his mind showed the external transformations. Starting from the tires upward, the original minibus seemed to vanish like an outer shell, replaced by gigantic tires and thick steel plating. In less than a second, the minibus disappeared from the highway, and a fearsome mining truck roared into view. Boom! The ground seemed to tremble. A layer of dust appeared to be blown away under the tires. Jiang Lusher sat in the driver's seat, still with a feeling of disbelief. In just an instant, the minibus had switched into the form of a mining truck. A Caterpillar 793D mining dump truck, just its height alone was about 6.5 meters. Sitting in the cab, looking at a car by the roadside felt like looking at a toy car. At that moment, as the base vehicle's second form, the full vehicle projection of the Caterpillar 793D mining truck and all relevant data appeared in Jiang Lusher's mind. Base vehicle second form activated. After activation, the vehicle's information. Model, mining truck. Empty vehicle mass, is almost equal to 365,500 pounds, meeting standards. Height, is almost equal to 21.3 feet. Width, is almost equal to 25.2 feet. Length, is almost equal to 42.2 feet. Power, diesel powered. Power output, is almost equal to 2,337 horsepower. Fuel tank capacity, is almost equal to 1,150 gallons. Top speed, is almost equal to 33.7 miles per hour. Features, can use acceleration, ramming, level 2 storage space functions. The air cannon, ramming horns, combat cabin, bulletproof glass reinforcement functions that were equipped in the first form cannot be used. A Colossus. Within the same company, the Caterpillar 797 dump truck is known as the world's largest truck, the king among trucks. Although this 793D is a bit smaller, its size and weight are still terrifying. Things like Land Rovers and Hummers pale in comparison to this vehicle. Just a single giant engineering tire of this mining truck, specification 40.00 R57, weighs 3.5 tons. Its outer diameter is 3.6 meters. Each tire costs over $20,000. The 16-cylinder engine has a displacement of 78 liters, and its fuel consumption per 100 kilometers is nearly insane. Top sports cars couldn't compete. Any ordinary adult standing in front of one of those tires looks tiny, let alone comparing with the truck. Awesome. Jiang Lusher sat in the driver's seat, inwardly thrilled. Although the fuel consumption of this vehicle was terrifying, burning fuel like drinking water, using it only at critical moments was perfectly fine. As for air cannons and the like not being usable, that was normal. Those were equipment on the minibus. This mining truck was essentially a bare vehicle. Even as a bare vehicle, its ramming and defensive capacities were already astonishingly powerful. When the vehicle was delivered, it had already been fueled, otherwise it could not have been driven away. Now it gave Jiang Lusher a chance to try it out. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The mining truck engine roared like thunder. Jiang Lusher slammed on the accelerator, and the truck charged forward like a giant taking huge strides. Boom, boom, boom. The small cars by the roadside looked like crushed soda cans. Jiang Lusher turned the vehicle head toward the middle of the road toward a green belt. He activated the ramming function, and the mining truck roared as it crashed into a concrete median more than a meter high. Crash! Concrete chunks flew everywhere. The wide, tall concrete median was flattened in an instant, as if it were made of tofu. Driving this mining truck, anything it hit got smashed. At that moment, he suddenly heard a muffled noise. As Jiang Lusher turned to look, he was dumbfounded. The road surface had large cracks everywhere, as if an explosion had occurred. This seems like he got a little carried away. Actually, highway foundations are quite thick. If a mining truck just drove over them, it wouldn't damage it. But with the ramming function activated, it was different. Jiang Lusher looked at the road and thought he should have driven the vehicle more toward the back. He wondered what Shintao and the others would think when they passed by tomorrow and saw the scene. Jiang Lusher checked the remaining fuel in the tank via his Starseed system and felt there wasn't much left, only about half a tank. While inwardly ridiculing the stinginess of the people who sold him the truck, he thought about where to get more diesel. In this apocalypse, most survivor squads used modified off-road vehicles that burned gasoline. Diesel was mostly used by the military. Military trucks burn diesel. Any gas stations along this road were probably plundered by the military. Jiang Lusher thought he would either try a nearby small town or check the trade market in Zone 1 of Zhonghai. Shintao said the trade materials variety there was large, so gasoline was likely available. As for diesel, he wasn't sure. Jiang Lusher stepped out for a moment to admire it, then switched the base vehicle back to its first form, the minibus, and drove back to the service station. Far off, Shintao and the others saw them returning. Although they were a kilometer away, they heard all the noises. One by one felt uneasy, wondering what Jiang Lusher was doing. Had he encountered a mutant beast? But when Jiang Lusher drove the minibus back and they looked him over, everything seemed normal again. Brother Jiang, dinner is ready. Come eat. Zhonghai shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Waving a skewer of fragrant grilled meat, he beckoned toward the approaching minibus. There were many things about Jiang Lushi they didn't understand, but it didn't matter, they just needed him to be powerful. Why did they follow him? So they could kill enemies freely and eat hearty meals. That night's dinner, Jiang Lushi's group, Shintao soldiers, Zhang Lao, and Zhang Jiaying joined at one table. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan grilled meat, took out seasonings for Shintao and the others, while Jiang Lushi specifically took a few cans of beer from the vehicle. Seeing the beer, Shintao and the others' eyes lit up. Before the apocalypse, they liked to drink. But in the apocalypse, beer and soda had become luxury items. People like Shintao, once they got supplies, would exchange them immediately for mutant beast meat to replenish their energy and evolution. Who would give up meat for beer? More absurdly, this beer was ice cold. This beer is sold in Zhonghai Zone 1 too, but not much, Shintao said. Jiang Lushi nodded. He brought out the beer partly because those soldiers had made a good impression, especially today, when Shintao entered the ship with him, risking life and death. And the matter itself had nothing to do with him. Also, those soldiers lived on the safety island, so they could exchange useful information with him. Besides, he had gotten those beers from you, and if he didn't drink them they'd expire. Normal beer's shelf life is just 6 months, too short. By the way, Brother Shen, do you know where the people who evacuated early from Jiangbei lived on Zhonghai Safety Island? Jiang Lushi asked. He guessed Li Yusin might live on the island. Jiangbei? Shintao thought seriously a moment, then shook his head. Sorry, the area I was responsible for evacuating was the Jinling area. I don't know about Jiangbei, and I haven't heard from comrades either. Why, Brother Jiang, are you from Jiangbei? Looking for someone? No matter, if you don't know it's fine, Jiang Lushi shook his head. He didn't insist on finding Li Yusin, he only felt some concern for her, that kind girl. When we reach Zhonghai Safety Island, I'll ask around everywhere, Shintao said. Thanks then, Jiang Lushi said. He actually didn't hold much hope, so many people evacuated, and Li Yusin might not even be alive. Let's drink. Jiang Lushi popped a can of beer. He didn't usually drink, but he was in a good mood today. Jiang Zhuing also held a can of beer, sat there sipping through a straw. Zhang Lao and Zhang Jiaying didn't drink, but both old and young wore smiles on their faces. Want some beer? Jiang Lushi looked at Ran Shiyu quietly sitting nearby, and passed her an open can. Ran Shiyu intended to refuse, but looking at the beer can covered in droplets, somehow nodded. Thank you. She held the cold beer with both hands, placing it on her fair lap, and stared at the liquid inside the can. Beer. Before the apocalypse, she drank top-grade wine. Even a small sip of those wines was worth far more than this beer. But in this apocalypse, sitting beside the grill, holding a can of ice-cold beer, Ran Shiyu felt a luxury many times beyond what she felt before. She never imagined that as the heir of the Ran Corporation, one day she would sincerely feel the meaning of luxury. As the liquid went down her throat, Ran Shiyu felt her cheeks flush warmly. That night, Ran Shiyu only drank 2 cans of beer, but after finishing them, she felt especially dizzy. This made Ran Shiyu feel a bit strange. Before the apocalypse, when she attended banquets, she also drank red wine. Although she had a low tolerance for alcohol, she could still handle a few glasses of red wine. It definitely wasn't to the point where just a bit of alcohol would make her drunk. But today, just 2 cans of beer, and she felt her head was heavy. Hearing Jiang Lushi and others talk around her, the sound of cans clinking, she didn't know why, but it all felt a bit distant. When it came to drinking, Ran Shiyu had always been very restrained. After all, she was a girl. Even though she often moved in high society, some rich young masters, when they got wild, were capable of doing anything. Ran Shiyu had almost never been drunk before. But today, she felt she was drunk. It was really baffling. But thankfully, Ran Shiyu was clear-minded enough to know that although she was outside now, the environment was relatively safe. She was sleeping in the minibus, and the only man there was Jiang Lushi. To put it bluntly, if Jiang Lushi really had any intentions toward her, he wouldn't need to take advantage of the drunkenness. She put down the beer can and wanted to eat some mutant beast meat to sober up. The mutant beast meat fried by Jiang Zhuing was really delicious. She ate a bit too much, but still felt dizzy. By the campfire, Ran Shiyu's face was lit up red by the firelight, giving her a different kind of charming beauty. Ran Shiyu felt like she couldn't hold on much longer, but the manners cultivated by her good upbringing allowed her to endure until the end of the dinner. When it was time to sleep, she groggily got into the car, lay down on the warm bedding. Under the moonlight, she vaguely saw the young face of the man across from her. A very clean face, very close, with a scholarly air to it, but in the dark, it was also sharp and defined, with an indescribable feeling. It was hard to imagine that this man drove a car, carried a gun, and almost single-handedly swept through the black market, rooting out the forces of Bai Zhanshan and Bai Pinghai. Thinking of the scene when he was shooting with the gun that day, Ran Shiyu fell deeply asleep. With the faint scent of alcohol, there seemed to be a subtle masculine scent near her nose, an unusual feeling. Ran Shiyu fell asleep. The corners of her lips curled slightly, as if smiling. No one knew what she dreamed of, but in the middle of the night, Jiang Lushi turned over, and his hand accidentally touched Ran Shiyu's face. It was a very soft touch, but very hot. Extremely hot. Jiang Lushi woke up groggily, subconsciously touched her again. Ran Shiyu's skin was very delicate, like fine silk, very pleasant to the touch. But at that moment, Jiang Lushi couldn't care about that pleasant feeling. He sat up straight. Damn, why is she so hot? Jiang Lushi quickly turned on the light, and only then did he see that Ran Shiyu's forehead was covered with sweat. She had kicked off the blanket in her sleep. Even the shirt she was wearing had a few buttons undone, revealing a large area of her collarbone. Her fair skin flushed red, and he could vaguely see the curves extending downward, reaching her chest. That slight sheen of sweat on her chest was indeed enough to make one's imagination run wild. She has a fever. But this is way too high. Jiang Lushi swallowed a mouthful of saliva and reached out to feel her temperature. It must have been at least over 40 degrees Celsius. Before the apocalypse, Jiang Lushi had collected some medicine, especially life-saving ones like antibiotics. He had quite a lot, but he didn't have a thermometer. He could only estimate that Ran Shiyu's temperature was very high. For most people, such a fever would fry their brain. What happened? Ying suddenly sat up from the couch, fully awake almost instantly. Then Jiang Zhuing opened the door and came out. She was wearing cartoon pajamas and rubbing her sleepy eyes. Brother, what's wrong? Ran Shiyu has a fever. Go get some ice from the fridge. Use a towel for a cold compress. We can't let the fever continue. Huh? A fever? Jiang Zhuing also woke up completely. She quickly checked Ran Shiyu's forehead. Damn, it was burning hot. In the apocalypse, getting sick was very dangerous. There were no doctors, no sufficient medicine, and the conditions were harsh. Many people couldn't recover even from a cold, they just died. Hot. Just then, Ran Shiyu managed to weakly say that word. Her hand instinctively tugged at her clothes, they were already soaked with sweat. The season was a bit cold in Zhonghai. Ran Shiyu wore thermal clothing under her shirt, and the heat had nowhere to escape, making her feel even hotter. She's burning up. Must be over 40 degrees Celsius. I think fevers over 41 or 42 degrees Celsius can be life-threatening. If it drags on, it'll damage her organs. Jiang Zhuing muttered. At that moment, Ying brought over the towel with ice. But the small fridge in the minibus had very little ice, and the towel on Ran Shiyu's forehead warmed up quickly. Take her clothes off. She'll die from the heat at this rate. You could cook an egg in that. Jiang Zhuing said and directly began unbuttoning Ran Shiyu's shirt. It was soaked in sweat and stuck to her body. Wearing such wet clothes could worsen the condition, even a healthy person could catch a cold, let alone someone already sick. They were all girls, so Jiang Zhuing didn't mind. She undressed Ran Shiyu quickly. As for Jiang Lushi, he was her brother. What's the big deal about him seeing a bit? At that moment, Jiang Lushi had just brought a glass of warm water and was about to feed Ran Shiyu some cold medicine and antibiotics when he suddenly saw Jiang Zhuing undressing Ran Shiyu. Ah? Jiang Lushi wanted to say something, but in the end swallowed it down. At this point, what was the point of pretending? Living in a van every day with two beautiful women, how could he not feel tempted? Besides, now it was about treating Ran Shiyu's condition. He consoled himself with that thought, but his eyes didn't know where to look. Jiang Zhuing was really unreserved. Shirt off, then thermal shirt, then long pants. Ran Shiyu's legs, long and slender, were suddenly revealed, pale and glowing, making Jiang Lushi feel a bit dizzy. Now Ran Shiyu was down to her underwear. Light blue underwear, bra and panties were a matching set, very delicately made, clearly expensive. As for Ran Shiyu's figure, though not as full as Ying's, her skin was white as porcelain, with the gentle charm unique to southern girls, sparking endless imagination. Jiang Zhuing grabbed a towel and began wiping Ran Shiyu's sweat. With her whole body soaked in sweat, the illness could easily worsen. It had to be wiped dry, or she couldn't even be covered with a blanket. Seeing his sister wipe sweat off a beautiful girl, it was a bit of a sensual scene. Cough cough, what am I looking at? Ran Shiyu is sick and I'm thinking dirty thoughts? I'm horrible. Jiang Lushi quickly shook off those thoughts. Taking advantage of someone's weakness was bad, especially in this situation. But Jiang Liushi's tiny actions were caught by Jiang Zhuing. She giggled, brother, if you want to look, just look. Why act all sneaky? Exposed by her words, Jiang Lushi was speechless. You brat, what nonsense are you saying? Focus on treating her. Pfft. Jiang Zhuing rolled her eyes and flipped Ran Shiyu over to wipe her back. Without looking up, she said, "You think I don't know what's in the hidden folders on your computer? Don't think I don't understand." Jiang Zhuing's words almost made Jiang Lushi faceplant. "Damn it, you looked through my computer?" He didn't even have the guts to deny it. Jiang Zhuing explained, "I didn't mean to. I opened your media player and accidentally saw the recent playlist." She gave Jiang Lushi an evil smile, revealing her little sharp tiger teeth. At that moment, if she had little wings and a tail, she'd be a complete little devil. Jiang Lushi didn't want to talk to her anymore. The dignity of being an older brother was gone. Thankfully, Ying was his completely loyal vehicle AI and didn't feel anything about these things. Otherwise, he really would want to crawl into a hole. Jiang Lushi quickly fed the medicine to Ran Xiyu. But just after he did, Jiang Zhuing, maybe just to tease him, after wiping Ran Xiyu's body dry, pulled the blanket over her. Then, her little demon hand slipped inside and pulled out a wet, light blue bra. Then, Jiang Zhuing continued wiping Ran Xiyu's chest with a towel. At that moment, Jiang Lushi was dumbfounded. His little sister really dared to do anything. But thinking about it, if the bra was soaked with sweat, wearing it would indeed feel uncomfortable. Wiping off the sweat and covering her with the blanket would help her recover. Plus, she needed to be wiped down from time to time, so the blanket wouldn't get soaked too. But now, wasn't Ran Xiyu left with just a pair of small panties? Aside from that, everything underneath was bare? Seeing Jiang Zhuing's little demon hands reach under the blanket to wipe Ran Xiyu's chest, Jiang Lushi couldn't help but feel a bit dry in the mouth. "Brother, are you trying to say, don't let me wipe anymore, you'll do it yourself? TSK, do you want me to lift the blanket for you?" Jiang Zhuing winked at Jiang Lushi with a mischievous smile on her lips. Jiang Lushi coughed dryly. "What nonsense are you talking about? So young and already full of dirty jokes. Hurry up and wipe her clean. We'll change the cold towel again in a bit. She's taken the medicine and we've wiped off the sweat. Now we just wait and see if she gets better." Jiang Zhuing curled her lips and muttered, "You say I'm full of dirty jokes, but who knows what you're thinking in that brain of yours? Buying a computer with such a huge hard drive, and you still have the nerve to scold me." Jiang Zhuing's mouth was sharp, and Jiang Liushi's forehead was covered with dark lines. Fine, this little ancestor was fierce. He couldn't afford to provoke her, better just shut up. He didn't dare argue with Jiang Zhuing anymore and focused on Ran Xiyu's condition. He touched Ran Xiyu's forehead, it was still hot. He had given her broad-spectrum antibiotics. Even though Jiang Lushi didn't know how to treat illnesses, generally a high fever meant a bacterial infection. Broad-spectrum antibiotics were effective for most acute conditions. Of course, antibiotics shouldn't be taken casually, but now it was the apocalypse, who cared? Mom? Grandpa? Ran Xiyu seemed to be having a nightmare. She bit her lip tightly, her delicate hands struggling hard, calling out to her family. With her struggling, inevitably, a bit more of her body was revealed. But this time, Jiang Lushi didn't look. He only sighed. He guessed that Ran Xiyu had witnessed her father mutate and eat many people. Maybe, some of them were her other relatives. Thinking about that scene, even hell couldn't be worse. One could imagine the trauma for a girl. With that thought, Jiang Lushi gradually calmed down. Such a pitiful girl, seriously ill and so fragile, if he still had thoughts of taking advantage, he'd be no better than a beast. "Brother Jiang," at that moment, Ying came to Jiang Liushi's side. "I feel like there's a strong energy fluctuation in Ran Xiyu's body." What Ying said made Jiang Liushi's heart skip a beat. Energy fluctuation? He looked at Ran Xiyu in surprise. Could it be, thinking carefully, such a high fever was indeed unusual. Over 40 degrees Celsius, how could a normal person burn so hot? Even the cold towel was steaming. Could it be evolution? Does evolution cause a high fever? Zhuing, did you have a fever when you evolved? Jiang Lushi asked Jiang Zhuing. Neither he nor Ying had evolved, so they didn't know what the process was like. Jiang Zhuing shook her head. "Nope. I just felt like I took a nap. My body hurt a lot, really hurt, and when I woke up, I gradually realized I had abilities." "It hurt? Where did it hurt?" Jiang Lushi asked. Jiang Zhuing pointed at her arms and legs. "Here hurt, and my shoulders too." Jiang Lushi thought for a moment, then said, "Zhuing, your cells evolved and became capable of producing electricity. Maybe the pain you felt was from the cellular changes. As for Ran Xiyu, didn't she already have some weak psychic abilities? That must be related to the brain. So if she's evolving, fever and nonsense talking would make sense." Jiang Lushi suddenly understood. Ran Xiyu had been an ability user before, but her ability was so weak it was practically useless. That's why Red Sister's team didn't even treat her as a real ability user and locked her in a cage to be sold as merchandise. Forget mutant beast meat, Ran Xiyu didn't even have enough normal food to eat. From the start of the apocalypse, she had been in a constant state of hunger. But after joining Jiang Liusher's team, she had 3 meals a day with mutant beast meat. With that kind of energy supply, it wasn't surprising her suppressed ability would start to awaken. Especially since they had killed a level 2 mutant snake recently, and had been eating level 2 mutant beast meat for days. Ran Shiyu had eaten a lot tonight, maybe it was the snake meat that triggered her evolution. Thinking back, Ran Shiyu had already looked drowsy while eating. She even nearly fell on him once. Originally, Jiang Liusher thought it was because she drank alcohol, but now it seemed unrelated to the beer. Ran Shiyu is probably evolving. Jiang Liusher stated his conclusion. Evolving? That's great. Jiang Zhuiying's eyes widened. I wonder what ability Ran Shiyu will awaken. Probably still psychic, but what kind? After hearing Jiang Liusher's theory, Jiang Zhuiying got a bit excited. In previous battles, Ran Shiyu couldn't help at all. The only thing she could help with was assisting Jiang Zhuiying in cooking. As someone who had focused entirely on her studies and business, Ran Shiyu's cooking skills couldn't compare to Jiang Zhuiying's. Zhuiying, keep wiping her sweat until she wakes up. We don't have doctors now. All we can do is feed her medicine and wipe off her sweat. Although Jiang Liusher guessed it wasn't just a fever, it was safer to give her medicine. Taking a little antibiotic wouldn't do any harm. Hopefully, it really was evolution. Okay. Jiang Zhuiying nodded, her little head bobbing. Brother, seriously, you don't want to try wiping her yourself? There you go again. Jiang Liusher rolled his eyes at her. Be serious. We've done all we can. Whether she evolves or not depends on her fate. Jiang Zhuiying and Jiang Liusher quietly waited. An entire hour passed. Ran Shiyu's fever slowly subsided. She stopped sweating so much. She slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was the faces of Jiang Zhuiying and Jiang Liusher. Wah, what happened to me? Ran Shiyu struggled to sit up, but as she moved, she suddenly felt bare in front. She was startled and instinctively clutched the blanket that nearly slipped off. She reached out and touched herself, her face instantly turned red. Where are my clothes? Ran Shiyu's mind went blank. Any girl would panic waking up to find their clothes gone. She touched below, her panties were still there, but her first thought was that something inappropriate had happened while she was drunk. But when she looked at Jiang Liusher, she instinctively felt that wasn't right. Ranjia, your clothes were soaked with sweat, so I wiped your sweat, hee. Don't worry, my brother didn't see your body. Jiang Zhuiying explained with a cheeky grin and kept winking at Ran Shiyu. Ran Shiyu's face turned red. She awkwardly glanced at Jiang Liusher and said, that's not what I meant. Of course she trusted Jiang Liusher. Honestly, in the apocalypse, countless girls had sold their bodies for a piece of bread. In this world, a girl's body didn't mean much anymore. Ran Shiyu valued her body, but so what? Back in the black market, she was still locked in a cage and sold like a pet. If not for Jiang Liusher, her chastity would have been long gone. She might already be living a life worse than death. So in front of Jiang Liusher, Ran Shiyu didn't put on airs. She still maintained a girl's modesty, but she knew her place. Hee, then what did you mean, Ranjia? That it's actually fine if someone did see. Jiang Zhuiying, a little troublemaker, caught the loophole in Ran Shiyu's words, making her blush all the way to her ears. She didn't know how to respond. Actually, Ran Shiyu understood that this wasn't a law-based society anymore. It was a world ruled by power, almost like ancient Rome. Honestly, saving someone could be seen as making them your property. If her relationship with Jiang Liusher had started as a transaction, now that he had failed his mining truck mission and even stirred up a sea monster nearly costing him his life, Ran Shiyu felt she owed him even more. Her food, drink, shelter, all from Jiang Liusher. Even her life was saved by him. She felt she could never repay him. She was just about to say something when suddenly a feeling struck her. She looked at her hands and muttered, I feel like I've changed somehow. The situation during each person's evolution is not necessarily the same. When Ran Shiyu said this, Jiang Liusher was already certain that this fever was caused by her having eaten enough mutant beast meat. The energy accumulated in her body had finally fully released the previously suppressed psychic ability. What's different? Tell me, Jiang Liusher looked at Ran Shiyu with some anticipation. If the team could gain another ability user, that would naturally be the best outcome. It feels like, Ran Shiyu looked around with some confusion, and it was this one glance that made Jiang Liusher's pupils slightly contract. He saw that Ran Shiyu's eyes had completely changed. Ran Shiyu's pupils were already different from normal people's, somewhat gray, giving off an indescribable sense of coldness. It was also because of these eyes that, when Red Sister tried to sell her at the black market, she made by Zhanshan, Fatty Yuan, and the others obsessed, willing to trade tons of mutant beast meat just to buy her. And now, when Ran Shiyu activated her ability, her eyes seemed to become a gray starry sky, filled with tiny star-like lights, like sparks of spirit power. When Jiang Lushi looked into her eyes, he felt a chill in his heart, as if he were being drawn into her gaze. However, Jiang Lushi had evolved his blood. After the mutation of his red blood cells, his brain received ample blood flow. Coupled with his already powerful brain region, he snapped out of it instantly. This gaze could probably hypnotize someone. Before the apocalypse, there were rumors of hypnotists who could, through psychological suggestion and mental guidance, put people into hypnosis to treat psychological trauma. Those pre-apocalypse hypnotists were probably people with especially strong mental power, but due to the lack of viral stimulation, they had never unlocked their full psychic abilities. Now, things were completely different. In Ran Shiyu's eyes, those light dots kept flashing. Only after a full minute did her eyes return to normal. She seemed a little afraid, her face slightly pale. "What's wrong?" Jiang Lushi asked. Ran Shiyu frowned slightly, hesitated, then said, "It's like what I saw in my dream just now. I saw a gray world. Everything in that world was made of lines, all connected by lines. The vehicle we were in also became lines. I looked through those lines and saw outside, the service station, trucks, refrigerated vans, they all became lines. And between these lines, there were clumps of flames, like people," Ran Shiyu said uncertainly. She glanced at Jiang Lushi again and nodded to confirm, "They really were people? Brother Jiang, you also turned into a flame, just a bit more intense than the others." "Oh? You saw all that?" Jiang Lushi was surprised. That was probably the so-called mental world. What Ran Shiyu saw was a completely spiritual world. Those non-living things, without spiritual power, became simple lines in the mental world. Only beings with spiritual energy appeared as burning flames. Presumably, the stronger the flame, the stronger the mental power. "How far can you see?" Jiang Lushi asked again. "As far as my eyes can see, very far," Ran Shiyu considered her words and replied. She saw the highway simplified into 2 lines, extending all the way to the end of her vision. "Wow, Ranjia, that's awesome. Can you tell how powerful my spirit flame is? Oh, and look at this cup, can you lift it with telekinesis?" Hearing Ran Shiyu's words, Jiang Zhuiying became interested and came closer. Speaking of psychic abilities, the first thing that came to Jiang Zhuiying's mind was telekinesis, the ability to move objects without touching them. There had been rumors of people with such abilities even before the apocalypse. Ran Shiyu looked at the cup in Jiang Zhuiying's hand. Her eyes once again turned into the gray starry sky form, with twinkling lights that were mesmerizing. She tried hard, but in the end, shook her head. "I don't know how to apply my mental power to this cup." "I see, what a pity. If you could lift the cup, maybe someday you could lift me, and I could fly while shooting electricity. That would be amazing," Jiang Zhuiying said regretfully, as if already imagining herself as a flying heroine. Jiang Lushi knocked her on the head and said grumpily, "If you fly into the sky, won't you become a live target for people with guns?" Jiang Zhuiying stuck out her tongue and said nothing more. Brother Jiang, is this ability useful?" Ran Shiyu blinked and looked at Jiang Lushi nervously. After the apocalypse, she had awakened her ability, but since it was useless, Red Sister had treated her that way. Although Ran Shiyu knew Jiang Lushi wouldn't treat her like that, she still hoped she could be helpful. Otherwise, she'd feel guilty just eating for free. Ran Shiyu had never been in combat. How useful her ability would be depended on Jiang Liushi's judgment. "It's pretty good. It might be very useful in the future," Jiang Lushi said with a smile. Ran Shiyu's psychic ability, at least for now, had one clear function: scouting. In the complex environment of the apocalypse, being able to detect the enemy's location in advance would be a huge advantage. Besides that, Jiang Lushi knew that even before this psychic evolution, Ran Shiyu could already communicate mentally, transmitting her voice directly into someone's mind. With one scouting ability and one communication ability, that was the current usage of her psychic powers. As for other potential functions, they'd need to be developed slowly. Developing telekinesis wasn't impossible either, and that would open up even more possibilities. In the future, as Ran Shiyu's strength grew, she should show more abilities. Psychic-type powers had huge potential. After hearing Jiang Liushi's affirmation, Ran Shiyu showed a joyful smile. These past days, she had watched Jiang Zhuiying and Jiang Lushi fight side by side. She felt envious and hoped she could have combat abilities like them. "Sleep. We'll study more tomorrow." Jiang Lushi snapped his fingers. They had been busy half the night without resting properly. Tomorrow, they'd need to cross Zhonghai, so they needed to be well rested. As soon as he said this, Jiang Zhuiying yawned and went back to her room to sleep. Ing naturally lay down on the sofa. Ran Shiyu and Jiang Lushi were still sleeping on the floor, their positions close. In the dark, Ran Shiyu quietly opened her beautiful eyes and looked at Jiang Lushi. Slowly, sleep came over her again, and Ran Shiyu fell into dreamland. Zhonghai, this was the largest city in Huaxia before the apocalypse, with a permanent population of over 25 million. 25 million people, if they held hands, they could circle the earth. With so many people gathered in one city, when this city suddenly fell into the apocalypse, one can imagine how hellish the scene must have been. The city center of Jinling was already a forbidden zone for the living. What would the city area of Zhonghai be like? Just thinking about it made Jiang Liushi's scalp tingle. They absolutely would not enter Zhonghai's urban area. At this moment, the convoy had only just arrived at the outskirts of Zhonghai. The tall buildings in the distance didn't look much different from before the apocalypse, but the scene on the streets was horrifying. The shops along the streets were covered in blood inside and out. A large number of vehicles were crashed together on the roadside. Traces of fire and explosions were still fresh. Clean-picked human skeletons could be seen everywhere. It was unclear whether they were humans or zombies that had been eaten. We have to go around Zhonghai, circle along the outskirts to reach the safety island. The military truck caught up, and Shintao pressed the windshield and spoke. Zhonghai's safety island was a newly developed area to the north of the city. Before the apocalypse, this area was under planning and construction. It was meant to become a satellite city combining commercial, residential, educational, and employment functions to relieve pressure from the main city. Later, when the apocalypse was imminent, this new area had completed construction but was uninhabited, making it an ideal location for establishing a safety island, and it was directly requisitioned by the government. In fact, from the time the government learned of the apocalypse to when the virus broke out, only a few days passed. Preparation time was extremely limited. In those few days, the government commandeered nearly all transportation routes, even suspending use of some highways. The hastily built safety islands had many flaws. As for Zhonghai District 1, it was essentially a township, originally called Xiaxiang Town. Because there were too many people on the safety island, some were relocated to Xiaxiang Town. In terms of infrastructure, Xiaxiang was much worse than Zhonghai's safety island. All this information about the Zhonghai safety island was told to Jiang Lushi by Shintao. As he processed this information, he also learned from Shintao that safety islands were not only in Zhonghai, emergency safety islands had been established across the country. That made sense. Huaxia was so large, and it wasn't realistic to gather all elites in one place in such a short time. The more people, the harder to manage. One mistake, and the entire safety island could collapse. As for who qualified as an elite for the safety island, it wasn't only pre-apocalypse powerful or political figures. Many technical professionals were included too. For example, university professors, IT elites, engineers, even skilled workers, carpenters, masons, farmers who understood hydroponics, and so on. Safety islands had to be built. These grassroots builders were essential. After the apocalypse, safety islands began opening up, allowing ordinary survivors to join. After all, to grow and develop, safety islands first needed manpower. I wonder what Li Yusen's parents did before. Jiang Lushi was thinking, when suddenly, boom! A loud explosion rang out. Jiang Lushi looked up and saw that about 100 or 200 meters ahead, a dozen-story building suddenly exploded, bursting into flames. Then the windows shattered, and over a dozen people fell from the building like ants. They struggled in the air, but eventually all crashed onto the asphalt road in front of the building. Even from this far, Jiang Lushi seemed to hear the sound of bodies turning into pulp. Falling from that height, death was certain. Survivors? Jiang Lushi didn't know what happened ahead, but for now he didn't plan to go over. There was a small residential area near that building, surely full of zombies. He didn't want to get involved in danger. Among those who fell, only 2 were living people. The rest were zombies. Probably the people were chased by zombies, had nowhere to run, and jumped out of the windows. At this time, Ran Shiyu suddenly spoke beside Jiang Lushi. Jiang Lushi nodded. From a distance of 100 to 200 meters, normal eyesight wouldn't distinguish humans from zombies. But Ran Shiyu, through her mental vision, could clearly see. It seemed that humans and zombies looked very different in the spiritual view. Can you see what's happening inside the building? Jiang Lushi asked Ran Shiyu. Ran Shiyu shook her head, I can't see clearly. If we get closer, it should be fine. The concrete walls weakened spiritual waves. Then forget it. Jiang Lushi shook his head. There might be survivors in that building, but with so many tragedies in the apocalypse, he couldn't save everyone. If it wasn't dangerous, he didn't mind helping, but in this case, no way. Just as Jiang Lushi was about to start the car and drive away, Ran Shiyu spoke again, "Someone's coming." Jiang Luxi's eyes narrowed. He saw a small team crouching, moving quickly toward them using cover. They all carried guns, but the weapons weren't good. No machine guns, no automatic rifles, not even a semi-auto Type 56. All handguns. Those pistols were probably found in a police station. In the apocalypse, police stations mostly had Type 64 pistols, which were very poor in performance, worse than crossbows. Even a headshot or heart shot might not kill a zombie. A very weak team, but there was an ability user. Jiang Lushi noticed the leader was a plump middle-aged man, slightly bald, who had deliberately combed some hair from the right side to cover his bald spot. To still care about image in the apocalypse, that was rare. An ability user, but not strong. Jiang Lushi could tell at a glance the fat man was the leader. Hard to believe someone so soft-looking and bloated could awaken. The middle-aged man cautiously approached Jiang Lushi's team, squinting his small eyes to look. When he saw the military emblem of the 81st Army on the truck, he finally relaxed. After checking that there were no zombies nearby, he straightened his clothes and walked over upright. Since Jiang Lushi's minibus was in front, he stopped in front of Jiang Lushi's windshield and said with a big smile, "Comrades from the military, right? I'm a local official from Zhonghai. I've been looking forward to your arrival. I knew the organization wouldn't abandon us. These days, though I stayed in Zhonghai, I always cared about the central government. I've been leading the people of Zhonghai, carrying forward the spirit of hard struggle and fearlessness, constantly fighting against evil forces." The middle-aged man spoke passionately, but Jiang Lushi rolled his eyes. What nonsense was this? Did he think they were a rescue team? Jiang Lushi held back. Jiang Zhuiying directly laughed out loud. "Fighting evil forces? What, you think you're Sailor Moon? Uncle, did you wake up wrong? What are you babbling about?" Jiang Zhuiying leaned on the windshield, slightly rolled down the passenger window. She didn't care. This weak ability user, with a Type 64 starter pistol, posed no threat. The middle-aged man was confused. Who was this little girl? Why was she so rude? He was still a state official, a Zhonghai official. People always treated him with respect. Only because of the current situation did he speak politely to these soldiers. Back in the day, he wouldn't even glance at such low-level troops. Who's in charge here?" The middle-aged man was a bit annoyed. He didn't want to waste words on underlings, just find their commander or political officer. "What do you want?" Jiang Lushi looked at the man, already a bit impatient. This guy was putting on airs right away. The man looked at Jiang Lushi, probably only 18 or 19 years old. A rookie soldier. And he was driving, so clearly not in charge. He coughed and repeated, "I'm a local official of Zhonghai. I want to see your person in charge." So damn long-winded. If the windshield wasn't in the way, Jiang Zhuiying would have kicked him away. Just then, Shintao came down. "What's going on?" As soon as he saw Shintao, the man glanced at his shoulder insignia, 1 stripe, 3 stars, a captain, battalion or company level. The man immediately ignored Jiang Lushi and walked toward Shintao with a big smile. "Comrade, your rescue work is really hard. I'm a local official of Zhonghai." Before he could finish, Shintao impatiently waved him off. "You're mistaken. Yes, we're a rescue unit, but not for you. Do you have anything else? If not, get out of the way." Shintao's orders were to rescue scientists. Only scientists were worth risking dozens of lives for the government to dispatch the army. So many comrades had died. Now they finally rescued the person. Shintao didn't want complications at the last moment. This man claimed to be an official, but in the apocalypse, people's hearts are unpredictable. Who cared what he was? The man's face froze. He adjusted his glasses, face turning cold. "Since you're here to rescue people, why not rescue a few more? Comrade, don't speak too harshly. I think you'd better reconsider. There are a few senior officials from Zhonghai trapped in the office building up ahead. These leaders are very influential in the southeast region. If you rescue them, they could easily support your career, help you rise quickly. Think about it." "I can pretend I didn't hear what you said earlier." When the middle-aged man said this, Shintao became somewhat angry. He said in a deep voice, "I don't care what kind of leader you are. The orders I received came directly from the military headquarters, and I only follow military orders. I'll say it one more time, move aside." Although Shintao was angry, he still maintained basic restraint. Otherwise, he would have drawn his gun already. After all, Shintao was a man of the army and still had some scruples about certain things. Seeing Shintao still refusing to rescue, the middle-aged man's expression turned even uglier. Although his official rank wasn't high, he had followed his superior for a long time and had a special status. Before the apocalypse, even officials of higher rank than him treated him with courtesy. An officer like this captain, back then he wouldn't have even bothered to look at him. If he didn't desperately need help now, he would have already cursed him out. He suppressed his anger and said coldly, even though it's the apocalypse, the military still has people in charge. Zhonghai's safety zone is under the Jinling military district, right? Our leader knows several of your senior officers. The middle-aged man spoke slowly. Shen Tao frowned. Officials in Zhonghai, even just a district-level leader, it wouldn't be surprising if they really did know people in the Jinling military district. Originally, Shen Tao didn't want to bother with these local officials. But if they were tied to the military headquarters. What do you say? Rescue my few old leaders, you won't lose anything. If you let them die and your superiors find out? Seeing Shen Tao hesitate a bit, the middle-aged official felt pleased. In his eyes, Shen Tao's team was probably just a small combat squad from the military district, with only a few guns and people. If they learned the old leaders they were saving were connected to their superiors, wouldn't they rush to help? Shen Tao's mouth twitched. He really wanted to beat this fat, greasy official up, but considering the guy might have companions nearby, and that his license plate had already been seen, he didn't dare do anything reckless. This is a note from our leader. If you don't believe what I said, you can look at this note. The middle-aged official said and handed over a note to Shen Tao. But at that moment, a hand reached over and took the note. It was Jiang Lushi. What are you doing? The middle-aged man's eyes widened. What's wrong with this new recruit, so rude, is he rebelling? Just as he was about to curse, he saw Jiang Lushi casually unfold the note. The paper used was a red-header document from before the apocalypse, now useless. On the back was a flamboyant signature. Jiang Lushi stared at it for a while but couldn't tell what the 3 characters were. He only recognized the surname Li. After that were 2 seals, 1 official government seal, and 1 personal stamp. This note is for your captain. Do you not understand rules? Give it back immediately, the middle-aged man shouted angrily. This thing? Jiang Lushi chuckled, raised the note, turned it sideways, and with both hands, tore it in half. The middle-aged man was stunned. You dare? He pointed at Jiang Lushi, watching the paper get torn into more and more pieces, until it was all shredded. Jiang Lushi casually tossed it. The scraps of paper fluttered to the ground. The middle-aged man trembled with rage. Fine. Very good. What unit are you from? What's your name? My name, Jiang Lushi smiled, then suddenly lunged forward and slapped the middle-aged fatty right in the face. A loud slap. The fat official's heavy body flew straight up, his glasses shattered into pieces. His body spun several times in the air before crashing to the ground. He was dizzy from the blow, nose and mouth bleeding, several teeth knocked out. The official was completely stunned. Before he could react, Jiang Lushi stomped down on him. The others around the official were frozen. They did have a few pistols, but those Type 64 handguns were worthless in Jiang Lushi's eyes. If anyone dared to draw a gun, Jiang Lushi could have killed them several times over already. I'm a government official, and you dare hit me? The middle-aged man's voice trembled. He couldn't even speak clearly. So what if I hit you? What do you officials usually do? Sucking up to superiors? Before the apocalypse, that was bad enough, now you're still doing it? You probably only care about your leaders, right? Your protective umbrellas. What, planning to take them to the Zhonghai safety island to keep being officials? And you'll stay there bootlicker, bullying others again? Jiang Lushi saw it clearly. The Zhonghai safety island looked like a pure land now, and countless people had their eyes on it. All kinds of schemers wanted to stir up trouble there. Because the apocalypse had only just begun, many people couldn't accept that Huaxia had shifted from a society where identity, power, and wealth decided everything, to one where strength was all that mattered. Especially those from the former power class. Since the government still existed and had considerable power, they kept fantasizing that the powerful, well-equipped state would eventually solve everything. Zombies and mutant beasts weren't invincible. If they just killed them all, the world would return to order. However, after witnessing that terrifying monster in Jinling port, which dragged down a cargo ship weighing thousands of tons, Jiang Lushi felt that the apocalypse hadn't even truly begun. Yes, the military was strong now, but in the future, as more and stronger mutant beasts appeared, and as ability users continued to evolve, the world would become unpredictable. Zhonghai's safety island seemed like a haven, but how long could it really last? Under such circumstances, let alone offending an official from before the apocalypse, even offending the entire military wouldn't scare Jiang Lushi. His base vehicle was his capital. The world was vast, where couldn't he go? Of course, for now, the military's actions were commendable. For example, sacrificing soldiers to rescue scientists, and protecting the country's senior technicians, farmers, and engineers. This was all for the hope of restoring peace. Drive. Let's go. Jiang Lushur got back in the car and started it. Shen Tao, standing to the side, secretly clicked his tongue. That was a clean hit, no hesitation at all. As a soldier, Shen Tao did care about the status of government officials. Even if he hated them, he didn't dare do anything. But look at Jiang Lushur, he not only beat that middle-aged official up, but probably wouldn't have flinched even if he shot him on the spot. From Zhonghai to the safety island, before the apocalypse, it was only a few hours' drive. But now, with all the stops and delays, it wasn't until the afternoon of the next day that Jiang Lushur's convoy finally saw Zhonghai District 1. Zhonghai District 1 was originally just a rural town. The town center was only a crossroads, and buildings taller than 5 floors could be counted on one hand. The rest were typical Jiangnan-style country houses. Black tile roofs and white walls, they looked very refreshing. But now, from a distance, Jiang Lushur saw that Zhonghai District 1 had become a huge construction site. From several kilometers away, they could already see a towering concrete wall, spreading across the horizon like a black giant serpent. This city wall had only just begun construction. The base was 5 meters thick, with lots of steel beams and rebar exposed, and many parts only half poured with concrete. Before the apocalypse, the government had requisitioned railways and highways to transport large amounts of building materials here. That was also why Jiang Zhuiying hadn't been able to return home. After the apocalypse hit, craftsmen that were summoned early, along with ordinary people, worked day and night to build this massive wall. It would become the lifeline of Zhonghai's safety island. The wall now stood only 4 to 5 meters high, but eventually would reach over 15 meters, forming a concrete great wall to resist increasingly stronger zombie hordes and mutant beasts, protecting the hundreds of thousands inside the safety island. Every 10 meters, a tower was built into the wall. Although these towers weren't completed, weapons had already been installed, 130mm cannon howitzers, paired with 2 large-caliber anti-aircraft machine guns. Just looking at those thigh-thick barrels and the oversized machine guns as tall as a person gave a strange sense of security. Probably the people of Zhonghai Safety Zone felt the same. With such weapons, no matter how many zombies came, they'd be blasted away. Even mutant beast packs wouldn't be able to withstand the heavy firepower. Below the wall stood armed patrol soldiers. Each unit was a reinforced platoon, each person carrying an automatic rifle, grenades, some even shouldered rocket launchers. Jiang Lushur had already passed by 8 or 9 such units. Combined, that was the strength of a reinforced battalion. With the heavy weapons on the partially finished wall, this fortress was truly impregnable. Of course, that was only for now. No one could say what the future held. Although the wall wasn't finished yet, several large iron gates had already been installed at the city entrance, alloy steel plates welded into thick gates that could withstand cannon fire. Each city gate had heavy guards, inspecting people entering Zhonghai District 1. Those waiting to enter formed a long line, many dressed in rags, skin and bones, looking like famine refugees from ancient times. They were all ordinary survivors who had gathered from elsewhere, bringing any weapons they could find. The lucky ones had ability users leading them. They crawled and walked from all directions toward Zhonghai Safety Island. Who knew how many had died on the way? But upon reaching the safety island, they were still just the lowest-tier refugees. Food supply on the island was extremely limited and couldn't feed so many mouths. The result, they had to perform hard labor, like building the wall, in exchange for very little food. Hunger, exhaustion, and illness due to lack of medicine, many would die here. It was not much different from building the Great Wall in ancient times. In fact, the safety island removed dead bodies every day. To prevent disease, they were cremated or buried en masse. Not only did they have no grave or tombstone, even their ashes were mixed with others. This was the tragedy of ordinary people in the apocalypse. Everyone, regardless of status, had to undergo wound and virus inspection before entering the city. Although the virus had already broken out and survivors carried antibodies. Even so, ordinary people still risked infection and turning into zombies, because the virus inside the zombies had mutated and evolved. The antibodies in regular bodies were mostly ineffective now. Once bitten, the chance of infection was over 90%. Safety Island regulations stated, anyone with wounds must be quarantined for observation. Those without visible wounds must have their eyes checked. Infected people in the mutation phase had noticeably different eyes. Easy to spot. At the city gate, 8 quarantine stations had been set up. Each was staffed by armed personnel, extremely alert. If anyone seemed off, they were immediately shot. At such a critical time, it was better to mistakenly kill someone than to let a virus carrier into Zhonghai District 1. Of the 8 checkpoints, 6 were for ordinary people. Because the inspection was thorough, all 6 had long lines. Under the scorching sun, with no shade, standing in line for 3 or 4 hours was a huge ordeal for starving refugees, truly a kind of suffering. Some had traveled a long way only to faint in line from low blood sugar. No one knew if they would ever wake up. Since the wound checks required touching the body, female personnel were assigned. Most were middle-aged women, doing the same repetitive task, often impatient. They would sometimes tug roughly. For men it was okay, but those skinny young girls couldn't handle it. Some were directly pushed over and even scolded. No one dared complain. They just hurried to stand up and continue the inspection. But the other 2 checkpoints, those were a different sight. One, slightly more crowded, was for combat personnel. Combat personnel meant ordinary people in fighting teams, required to carry rifles or high-powered handguns with at least 100 rounds of ammo. The last checkpoint was for ability users. That line was even shorter, only 3 people, no need to wait at all. 2 major-level officers handled reception, and 6 beautiful women did the inspections. These 6 beauties were originally part of a performance troupe, stunningly beautiful, tall, with big breasts, slim waists, and long legs. Their inspections were gentle and sweet-smiling. They asked a few questions, made notes, the whole process was pleasant. This clearly showed the massive gap in treatment between ability users and ordinary people. At this point, Shintao had already gotten out of the car. Looking at the refugees, he sighed, ordinary people are truly pitiful. When they come here, they're still at the bottom. Vehicles aren't allowed in the city, all must be parked outside. Fuel is confiscated, though the military will give a bit of food in exchange. After that, they have to wake up early and work until dark just to barely survive. Their housing? Huge shared dorms, or even tents. In winter, that's hell. But ability users? They're much better off. They can bring vehicles into the city. They get assigned a small apartment. The stronger ones even live inside the safety island itself, in modern high-rises. Behind those buildings, there's a small mountain, with a villa district. But those villas? Not for ordinary folks. Shintao briefly explained the rules for entering the city. Jiang Lushur nodded. With hundreds of thousands living here, of course it would be crowded, there weren't enough homes. He suddenly thought of something and asked, what about the elites? What kind of place do they live in? Actually, he wanted to know where Li Yusen would be. After all, odds were low that she awakened as an ability user. If she was lucky enough to survive, she was probably just an ordinary person. As for elites, they generally live in high-rise apartments. Only 2 scientists who made significant contributions at the Virus Research Institute were assigned villas in the mountain district. Now that Elder Zhang has arrived, maybe he'll also get to live in the mountain villas. That would be quite something, Shintao said, with a trace of respect on his face. No matter the time, these scientists were always highly respected. Brother Jiang, your team is quite strong. In the future, you'll likely have the chance to move into the high-rise apartment area, Shintao added. Jiang Lushur nodded. Shintao had clearly misunderstood, thinking he was asking about where he himself could live. But Jiang Lushur wasn't planning to ask about Li Yusen directly, asking wouldn't help anyway. Elder Zhang, as a senior scientist, needs to go through a full medical check. We also need to get inspected and report back, so we'll take our leave now. When we find out where you'll be staying, we'll come visit. As for the 3 level 1 mutant nuclei, once they're approved, I'll bring them to you, Shintao said. The military had procedures for material approvals, so it wouldn't be immediate. Jiang Lushur nodded in understanding. No problem. Then we're off. Let's have a drink together in a few days. Shintao laughed heartily. Professor Zhang and his granddaughter Zhang Jiaying also got out of the vehicle to say goodbye, especially Zhang Jiaying. Her eyes were red, and she reluctantly held Jiang Zhuiying and Ran Shiyu's hands. Then she walked to Jiang Lushur and said, Brother Jiang, goodbye. Please come visit us later. Okay. Goodbye, little Jiaying, Jiang Lushur said, reaching out to pat her on the head. The military had a dedicated channel for missions. Shintao and the others got back into their military truck and drove off. Zhang Jiaying leaned over the truck's rail, still waving goodbye to Jiang Lushur and the others. Let's go. Time to enter the city, Jiang Lushur said. The minibus led the way, followed by the refrigerated truck, heading to the ability user quarantine checkpoint. Many refugees looked toward Jiang Lushur and his group, their eyes filled with envy. The beautiful female performers, who had just finished inspecting the previous 3 people, immediately smiled and came forward again when they saw more vehicles arriving. Hello, welcome to Zhonghai District 1. Please get off the vehicle for inspection, and we'll need to ask you a few questions, said one tall female soldier. She had a curvy figure, wore a tight-fitting military uniform, and black leather boots. Though none of her skin was exposed, she exuded a special kind of allure. Jiang Lushur and the others got out of the car and followed her to the inspection station. They first underwent a physical examination and were then led to a table. Two major-ranked officers were sitting there, with a computer in front of them. Hello, the two officers greeted them with a smile. This is the rules handbook for Zhonghai District 1. The main 2 points are, first, do not break the law or fight. Second, vehicles can enter the city, but you are not allowed to drive them inside the city unless you're leaving. Each residence is assigned for 1 month. Normally, the stay is automatically extended. If you leave the city, your spot is held for 1 extra month. After that, if you don't return, it's considered vacant and reassigned. The rest are details, you can check the manual, said one of the officers, handing them a booklet. No driving allowed. Jiang Lushur frowned slightly, but he understood. Zhonghai District 1 had limited space and was crowded with people. If every survivor team drove around freely, traffic would be a disaster. Now that the minibus had autopilot and fighting was prohibited inside the city, Jiang Lushur wasn't too worried. This is the ability user badge. Each ability user gets one, the other officer said, handing out 4 badges, for Jiang Zhuiying, Ran Xiyu, Zhang Hai, and Sun Kuan. It seemed these 2 officers were also ability users. They had already judged the group's identities and strength through energy fluctuations. Although Jiang Lushur had developed brain domain abilities and activated mutated blood cells, his powers came from genetic evolution fluid, not from virus mutation, so he emitted almost no energy fluctuations like other ability users. It was normal for the officers to mistake him for an ordinary person. That's not right, our boss is also, Zhang Hai began to speak. It's fine, Jiang Lushur interrupted him. His ability was difficult to explain, and he didn't want to get entangled with the military over it. Do we have to wear this? Jiang Zhuiying asked, holding the badge with a frown. Won't this make us look like school kids? It's not mandatory to wear it, the officer replied, shaking his head. Jiang Lushur asked, how are the living arrangements handled? The 2 officers checked the computer and replied, we assign housing based on strength and number of ability users. You're eligible for 4 housing units. You can choose 4 single rooms or 2 suites. Jiang Lushur nodded. Most ability users probably lived in Zhonghai District 1. Shen Tao had only said they'd have a chance to live in high-rise apartments in the future. It looked like few people got to live inside the safety island itself. Even within Zhonghai District 1, those who got apartments were already a small group. Then let's pick 2 suites, Jiang Zhuiying said immediately. She turned playfully to Jiang Lushur and stuck out her tongue. I want to stay in the same suite as my brother. Then, I'll stay in a room with you too, Zhuiying, said Ran Xiyu. Then Ying has to stay with us too, Jiang Lushur thought for a moment and asked, can we get 1 3-room and 1 1-room apartment? The 3-room suite would house 4 people. The 1-room apartment would go to Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan. The officer looked at him and said, yes, please wait a moment. We'll arrange it right away. These are the keys and the addresses for both apartments, one officer said, handing them 2 sets of keys. We've also set up a trading hall in Zhonghai District 1. If you want to buy or sell anything, you can go there. The military and many survivor teams often post tasks. If you want to earn supplies, that's the fastest way. Hope you enjoy your time in Zhonghai District 1. Both officers were very friendly. The outer area of Zhonghai District 1 was a large construction site. As the vehicles drove further in, the surroundings gradually began to feel more normal, almost like before the apocalypse. Shops lined both sides of the street, and many pedestrians walked by. It didn't feel desolate at all. Most people walked in small groups, clearly part of survivor teams. Jiang Lushur's team was assigned housing in the same complex, about 200 or 300 meters apart. This complex was considered among the best in Zhonghai District 1. It had green belts, parking spots downstairs, and the buildings were built with a somewhat European style. Jiang Lushur and the others casually looked around their rooms, then Jiang Zhuiying began clamoring to go out and see the town. After living in the apocalypse environment, suddenly coming into a safe, bustling town, wanting to go out for a walk and relax was only natural. I just saw a barber shop. I haven't cut my hair for a long time. Let's go see it. Jiang Zhuiying grabbed Jiang Lushur's arm and shook it, coquettishly. Hearing haircut, Ran Xiyu was also tempted. Girls all like to be pretty. Before, when conditions didn't permit, she naturally didn't think of such things. But now, just hearing there was a barber shop? Only Ying had no expression. What is a haircut? Okay, let's go. Jiang Lushur gave in to Zhuiying. Bring some mutant beast meat, I guess here they'll take mutant beast meat as payment. Haircuts surely wouldn't be expensive. But in this apocalypse, probably only ability users with decent strength would get haircuts. Who else had the spare money? Ing stayed behind to watch the vehicles. Jiang Lushur accompanied the two girls to the barber shop. After sitting there a while, Jiang Lushur felt restless. You two continue. I'll go walk around. Accompanying girls shopping or having their hair done, before or after the apocalypse, is really torture for a guy, even if both girls were pleasant to look at. Jiang Lushur thought to go to the trading hall and take a look. He had quite a few weapons to sell, and he also wanted to see if there were mutant crystals for sale, though that was unlikely. Walking along the street slowly, Jiang Lushur felt a strange sense, like his mood had suddenly relaxed a lot, as though he had returned to before the apocalypse. Thank you for coming, Li young master. Please come again next time. At that moment, a few people walked out of a shop ahead, faces flushed with health. Behind them followed a man in a suit, nodding and bowing, wearing a big smile. These people are powerful, wealthy. They're eating at Jingchun Pavilion. Jiang Lushur heard two people passing by say with envy. The name Jingchun Pavilion was well chosen. Actually, judging by its storefront, it was modest, probably a restaurant from the pre-apocalypse town that had just been reused. But for someone to still dine in a restaurant in the apocalypse, they were indeed wealthy. If anyone comes again selling wool yangya, let someone notify me, the group's leader said, loud enough. That's a must. Since young Master Li speaks, how could I not notify? The restaurant owner nodded repeatedly. Jiang Lushur passed by that restaurant, glanced at them, and went past the people. Jiang Lushur? A surprised voice called out, stopping him. Jiang Lushur turned and was taken aback. He had just glanced casually and had not expected the person to be someone he knew. Li Qinghui. Jiang Lushur was also surprised. This Li Qinghui had been his high school classmate. They had played soccer together for a time and were somewhat familiar. But later they drifted apart. Damn, to meet you here of all places. Li Qinghui shouted dramatically. You're doing well now, Jiang Lushur said, glancing at the restaurant owner. The one calling young Master Li earlier was Li Qinghui himself. Cough, cough, what young Master Li? Li Qinghui looked a bit embarrassed and lowered his voice. I'm just hanging with the boss, here to help buy liquor. The owner calls everyone young Master Li when they see a buyer. Damn, he'd rather call anyone his father. So that's how it is. Jiang Lushur smiled. Just now Li Qinghui had acted like he enjoyed the treatment. But when an old classmate showed up, he got awkward instantly. He lowered his voice, clearly worried passers-by would hear. He had just been speaking loudly himself. You haven't changed much. Just like before. Haven't seen each other since graduating high school, right? Geez, you grew quite a bit. I, since graduation, have just drifted sideways. People comparing, kills you. Li Qinghui slapped Jiang Lushur on the shoulder and laughed. Yeah. Jiang Lushur said. Alive and meeting again isn't easy. When did you come to Zhonghai? Li Qinghui asked. Me? I just arrived today. Jiang Lushur replied. Oh, that's quite something. Li Qinghui nodded knowingly. Coming from the North Bank is difficult, that you only arrived now was normal. No one knew how many hardships you endured. He had felt that deeply. What do you plan to do now? Zhonghai District 1 is safe, but not easy to survive here. Li Qinghui asked again. I plan to go to the trading hall, Jiang Lushur said. Damn. Go to the trading hall? They recruit wall builders over there. How could a scholar like you do that? Fortunately you ran into me today. Li Qinghui cut in, grabbing Jiang Lushur's arm, then turning to his companions. Tell the boss I ran into an old classmate and went off to handle something. His companions nodded. Go, go. Come on, come on. I'll take you to a good place, Li Qinghui said, dragging Jiang Lushur along. Where are we going? Li Qinghui pulled him along without saying where they were headed. By the way, have you met any other classmates here in Zhonghai District 1? Jiang Lushur suddenly remembered something and asked. He had originally thought about asking Shen Tao, but when it came to news about Li Yusen, it would probably be faster to ask Li Qinghui than Shen Tao. Yeah, since Jiangbei is pretty close to Zhonghai, the classmates who survived mostly came to Zhonghai. We even had a small gathering once, Li Qinghui said. Oh? Have you seen Li Yusen? Jiang Lushur asked. Li Yusen? Of course I have. Li Qinghui replied. Jiang Lushur nodded. Knowing that Li Yusen was still alive was good news. In the apocalypse, the chances of mutation and death were too high. Jiang Lushur had considered the possibility that Li Yusen had become a zombie or had died. Hearing that she was safe gave him a sense of relief. What, you want to see her? Li Qinghui looked Jiang Lushur up and down and suddenly punched him in the chest. Wow, so you really had a crush on Li Yusen. What do you mean, really had a crush? Jiang Lushi was stunned. Back then, everyone said you liked her. It was all over in private. Damn, I thought it was just rumors. You're bold, aiming for the school beauty, Li Qinghui said. It's nothing like that. Back then, Li Yusin helped me a bit, so I just want to see her, Jiang Lushi explained. Alright, it's not something to be ashamed of. Besides, Li Yusin is pretty, classy, from a good family, and has a nice personality. It's normal to like her. Honestly, I admire her too. But it's just admiration, I wouldn't dare to think more. She's a white swan. We're not in the same league, Li Qinghui said. Jiang Lushi shook his head speechlessly. Clearly, reasoning with him was pointless. I was going to take you to someone I know and help you get a job, but since you're so love-struck, let's go see Li Yusin first. Li Qinghui also shook his head. They still hadn't figured out their next meal, and he was already thinking about girls. But for ordinary people like them, Li Yusin was way out of their league. Wait a sec, I have her communication code. I'll call her, Li Qinghui said. Call? Jiang Lushi was surprised. People could still make calls in the apocalypse? He also had a phone, but he only used it for maps and music. He never got any signal. Was it a satellite phone? That'd be high-end. Li Qinghui walked with Jiang Lushi for a bit more and arrived in front of a small shop. Here we are. Jiang Lushi looked up and was shocked again. Damn, China Telecom. China Telecom is still providing service in the apocalypse. Jiang Lushi asked in disbelief. Even though he knew Zhonghai had well-preserved infrastructure, seeing China Telecom still in business was unbelievable. Haha, of course. Communication has always been a basic human need, Li Qinghui said with a sigh. Don't worry, I know the guy who runs the place. He's efficient. Jiang Lushi didn't know what to say and followed Li Qinghui into the small shop. Inside were just 2 glass counters, a map on the wall, and a long price list. Where was the phone? Jiang Lushi looked around but didn't see any. Li Qinghui had already gone to the counter and said to the slightly bald man behind it, Old Huang, what are you doing? A customer walks in and you're still reading that dirty magazine? Damn. You scared me. The bald man quickly shoved a magazine with a revealing cover to the side and asked, Young Master Li, what brings you here? Making a call. Communication code is 7981, Li Qinghui said. Hold on. The bald man pulled out a thick booklet. His chubby fingers flipped through it quickly and stopped at one page. Got it. What's the message? Li Qinghui casually took a notebook and pen from the counter and quickly wrote something down. Here's the message. The bald man glanced at it and said, That's the safe island, expensive. But for you, I'll give a discount. Don't you have some Farang Wang cigarettes? 3 sticks. That's a rip-off. That's the friendship price. Li Qinghui took out a pack of Farang Wang. It was carefully wrapped in a Ziploc bag, clearly something precious. When he pulled out 3 cigarettes and saw only 5 or 6 left inside, his mouth twitched. 3 sticks. Make it quick, Li Qinghui said. All right, there's a bench, go sit and wait. It won't take long. The bald man then called out a teenage boy from the back. The kid took the note and dashed off. So this China Telecom is just someone running errands? Jiang Lushi asked, a bit confused. Yeah, these days they're called human telephones. He has the address linked to the communication code. As long as you know the code, he can deliver your message, Li Qinghui proudly said. Jiang Lushi shook his head. In this apocalyptic world, phones didn't work. Satellite phones were likely military use only. Regular folks had to walk to talk to each other. This China Telecom relay service did help a bit. But even the friendship price cost 3 cigarettes. Most people couldn't afford a call. The main issue is Safe Island. Most people can't go in without permission. But these communication runners can get in and out. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up those 3 cigarettes. It hurt. But when he noticed Jiang Lushi watching him, Li Qinghui quickly laughed. You'll get a reply soon. Excited? I like how devoted you are. As an ordinary person, Li Qinghui's life in Zhonghai District 1 wasn't as glamorous as his nickname, Young Master Li, suggested. Running into an old friend like Jiang Lushi, who was even worse off, made him feel a sense of camaraderie. And it wasn't much trouble just to send a message to Li Yusin. That address came from a contact during our last gathering. She's living in Safe Island. She's really in a different world than us, Li Qinghui said, glancing at Jiang Lushi. Even though he helped him, he didn't want Jiang Lushi to get too caught up, there was too much of a gap between them. It would only lead to disappointment. The high-rise apartments in Safe Island were the most luxurious residential areas in Zhonghai before the apocalypse. As for the mountain villas in Safe Island, their prices were sky-high. Ordinary people could only dream of living there. The current residents were either powerful superhumans or elite professionals like scientists. Even now, the villas weren't fully occupied. In one of the high-rise apartments, behind a large floor-to-ceiling window, a girl was sitting on a sofa, quietly reading a book. She looked about 19 or 20, wearing a casual white nightdress with a silk robe draped over it. Her fair shoulders and long slender legs were visible. She was completely absorbed in her book when another girl came over with a cup of tea and sat in front of her. "Yusin, I'm so bored. Stop reading and talk with me for a bit." Li Yusin looked up and tucked her hair behind her ear. "Didn't you say you were going to find a book to read?" She was Li Yusin, Jiang Liusher's former deskmate. The other girl was her best friend, Wang Shiqi. They knew each other before coming to Zhonghai. She was a year younger than Li Yusin, and their parents were co-workers. "But all your books are technical. I get dizzy just looking at them." Ugh, the apocalypse was scary at first, now it's just suffocating. No electricity, no internet, not even TV. "Yusin, stop reading already. Come have dinner with me tonight. My husband has a few friends who've heard about you, the famous beauty. They really want to meet you," Wang Shiqi said excitedly. "I'll pass," Li Yusin shook her head. "Shiqi, you only think about fun. It's not like before. Without skills, what will we do in the future? We're not superhumans, we need to rely on knowledge." "Yusin, please," Wang Shiqi groaned, hugging her arm and tickling her. For a moment, her nightgown shifted, revealing even more skin. "Your skin is so soft and fair. I'm jealous. Prepare to be punished." "Stop it." Li Yusin tried to dodge away. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Li Yusin took the chance to get up. "All right, stop messing around. I'll go change. You answer the door." This was a high-end building. Random people couldn't get in, so there was no worry about safety. Wang Shiqi pouted, clearly not done playing. She opened the door and asked disinterestedly, "Who are you looking for?" The telecom runner was stunned when he saw her, so pretty. "Hello, I'm from China Telecom. I have a message for Li Yusin," he quickly said. "A message? I'm her best friend. Just tell me directly," Wang Shiqi said. A classmate of Li Yusin's arrived in Zhonghai District 1. "His name is Jiang Liusher," the runner said. "Jiang Liusher?" Li Yusin had just changed clothes and came out. When she heard the name, she froze for a second and then quickly walked over. The telecom boy's eyes lit up when he saw Li Yusin. Wow, these girls were all stunning. Especially this one, not as fashionably dressed as the first, but with a quiet beauty that was really captivating. Wang Shiqi noticed Li Yusin's expression and asked curiously, "Who is it? Got our Princess Yusin so worked up?" "A classmate, he's still alive. I didn't expect him to make it to Zhonghai," Li Yusin said happily. Back then, she had told Jiang Liusher to head to the highway to find the military and come to Zhonghai. But after the disaster broke out, she had seen too much death and destruction. She had no idea if Jiang Liusher had survived or made it to Zhonghai. She didn't even want to think about what might have happened to him. Now, hearing news about him all of a sudden, Li Yusin was filled with joy. In this post-apocalyptic world, knowing someone you care about is still alive, there's no way to describe that feeling. "Where is that person now?" Wang Shiqi asked the telecom boy. Waiting at China Telecom for a reply, the telecom boy quickly answered. "Ah? Zhonghai District 1. Before Wang Shiqi could finish, Li Yusin said, "Please tell him I'll be there soon. Ask him to wait at, never mind, tell him to wait for me at the Xianlai Yaki Cafe." Li Yusin felt this was something worth celebrating. The Xianlai Yaki Cafe in Zhonghai District 1 was considered a very classy place. In all of Zhonghai District 1, there were only a handful of places for leisure and entertainment. "Shiqi, come with me," Li Yusin said. She suddenly felt a bit awkward about meeting Jiang Liusher alone, since they hadn't had contact for 2 or 3 years. As a girl, meeting a guy alone like this made her a little shy. Zhonghai District 1 is so far. Wang Shiqi was quite unhappy. Cars weren't allowed, so they had to walk. Her delicate feet couldn't take it. But thinking of Li Yusin's classmate, Wang Shiqi felt a little curious. Just from the name Jiang Liusher, she could tell it was a guy. She wondered what kind of relationship he had with Li Yusin. Li Yusin said he was just a classmate, but how could Wang Shiqi believe that? All right, I'll go with you, just to be nice." Wang Shiqi held Li Yusin's arm and blinked mischievously. "But in exchange, you have to go to dinner with me tonight. Yusin, if you go on like this, you'll become a shut-in. You need to get out and interact with people sometimes." Li Yusin helplessly agreed, "Fine, you win." The telecom guy left first. Li Yusin changed her shoes, and then she and Wang Shiqi left. The two girls didn't walk very fast. About an hour later, while Jiang Liusher and Li Qinghui were still waiting at China Telecom, the telecom boy came back. Li Yusin said to wait for her at the Xianlai Yaki Cafe. She'll be there soon, the telecom boy said before Li Qinghui could ask. Xianlai Yaqi? Nice. I've been here for so long and never been there. Li Qinghui smacked his lips and said. Sigh, life really is different. Even meeting someone has to happen in a place like that. Jiang Lushi, you're new here so you don't know, this Xianlai Yaqi cafe is super fancy. Regular people can't afford it. Come on, I'll take you to check it out. Jiang Lushi was also curious how fancy this cafe really was. But 10 minutes later, when they arrived at the entrance, Jiang Lushi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. This place looked like an old dive converted into a cafe? What, looks average to you? Seeing Jiang Lushi's expression, Li Qinghui said, speechless. Don't look down on how small it is. Sure, it can't compare with Starbucks or whatever from before the apocalypse, but now it's the end of the world. This cafe may not look like much, but regular people can't afford it. Come on, I want to see it myself too. There weren't many people inside. Near the entrance, a row of waitresses in maid outfits stood beside the front desk. They were all pretty and, more importantly, youthful, really eye-catching. Even though the place was clearly converted from a dive bar, the walls had decorations, and the tables and chairs were quite classy. It had that kind of decadent, artsy vibe that was popular before the apocalypse. The only downside was it was a bit small. 2 people, a waitress came up and asked warmly. We have others coming, Jiang Lushi said. This way please. Since the cafe wasn't busy, the waitress led them to a larger table. Would you like to order now? The waitress asked. Let me take a look at the drink menu, Jiang Lushi said. Sure. The waitress quickly brought over the drink menu. Jiang Lushi opened it, and Li Qinghui leaned over to look too. Holy crap. Li Qinghui's eyes nearly popped out. Damn, this was insanely expensive. A cup of freshly brewed coffee cost 5 kg of rice. This was robbery. No wonder the cafe was so empty. One sale probably supported them for half a year. In Zhonghai District 1, food was the standard currency. The military issued food stamps that worked like old paper money. Grain was precious in the apocalypse. Spend 5 kg of rice for a cup of coffee? But Li Qinghui glanced around and saw 2 tables of customers, both had ordered coffee. Even in a harsh apocalypse, some people still lived pretty well, either relying on strength or other resources. This cafe existed because of people like that. Damn it, this place really isn't for poor folks like us, Li Qinghui thought, touching his pocket. Jiang Lushi had just barely made it to Zhonghai alive, of course he didn't have money. Li Qinghui mentally calculated his own assets. He couldn't afford it either. Looked like they'd have to let Li Yusen pay. Damn, how embarrassing. Have you decided what to order? The waitress asked. We'll wait a bit. We're waiting for a friend, Li Qinghui said. Jiang Lushi nodded in agreement. More than 40 minutes later, 2 beautiful girls appeared at the cafe entrance. Just by standing there, they immediately drew the attention of most of the people on the street. One of the girls was petite, dressed very delicately, with perfect makeup and doll-like smooth curls. She looked like she didn't belong in the same world as everyone else. It was the apocalypse, most people couldn't even stay clean, let alone wear makeup. The other girl wore just a simple white t-shirt and tight jeans, but her presence stood out. She was extremely pretty, and her exposed skin was incredibly fair, almost glowing. Her long black hair flowed freely over her shoulders. Compared to the cute girl, she was even more eye-catching. People couldn't take their eyes off them. But this was Zhonghai District 1, not the outside. Even though some ability users were tempted, they wouldn't dare act out here. Oh my god, I'm exhausted. I can't walk anymore. Wang Shiqi stopped, refusing to move. She deeply regretted it, just a bit of curiosity had led her to walk so far. Even during her escape in the early days of the apocalypse, she hadn't walked this much. And Zhonghai District 1 was broken and old, with strange people everywhere, dressed dirty. Several times, people had accidentally brushed against her. She quickly patted down her expensive little jacket. Before the apocalypse, this outfit cost tens of thousands. Now it might be worthless, but it was still rare. And now it was all dirty from just one trip here. Shichi, we're almost there, just a few more steps and we can sit down. My classmate is still waiting for me, Li Yusen said helplessly. Wang Shichi rolled her eyes. She was fine until that classmate was mentioned, just hearing that name made her angry. It was all his fault. All right, my lady. I'm just resting a bit. Wang Shichi gently rubbed her calf, then walked into the cafe. Li Yusen followed her in. Jiang Lushi? A soft, pleasant voice rang out. Jiang Lushi, who had been looking down at his phone, raised his head. A beautiful figure with a gentle smile appeared in front of him. After not seeing each other for 2 or 3 years, and having gone through the outbreak of the apocalypse, Jiang Lushi felt as if time had turned back the moment he saw Li Yusen again. Li Yusin's simple outfit and gentle smile made Jiang Lushi feel like he had returned to high school, the girl who used to turn her face slightly, holding a pen in her hand, quietly gazing out the window. Back then, when the two of them were solving problems together, Jiang Lushi could always smell the clean scent of body wash on Li Yusin. Sometimes her hair would brush against his face or hands, making him feel a ticklish sensation. Jiang Lushi looked at Li Yusin and showed a faint smile. Long time no see. It has been a long time. Meeting under these circumstances really makes one emotional. Li Yusin's voice was soft and gentle. She was always like that, giving people a kind and warm feeling. But in reality, she kept her distance from most people. Back in school, although many boys were crazy about her, she never gave anyone special attention. When did you arrive? Li Yusin asked. Just today, Jiang Lushi replied. Li Yusin was about to ask more, but suddenly a loud, exaggerated exclamation came from inside the cafe. Huh, isn't that Miss Wang Shiqi? A well-dressed young man from one of the two occupied tables stood up. Amazing, I actually ran into you outside of Safe Island. What brought you here? Song Feng? Wang Shiqi looked surprised. Why are you here? Came out to meet a friend, but my friend's delayed, probably stuck outside, Song Feng said. And you? I came with Yusin to meet her classmate. Wang Shiqi pointed inside. Song Feng's eyes lit up. He quickly looked over and whispered, that stunning beauty just now is Li Yusin? Duh, Wang Shiqi rolled her eyes at him. This Song Feng also lived in Safe Island. His dad worked in the government, and he himself was an ability user. Wang Shiqi had known Song Feng for a while. She knew that although he had abilities, he was too scared to fight monsters or zombies, so his combat strength was terrible. And since Song Feng had a very easygoing personality, Wang Shiqi didn't hold back when talking to him. TSK, hearing about her doesn't compare to seeing her. Introduce me. Song Feng asked. Yusin. Li Yusin had already seen the two chatting. When she saw them approaching, she nodded slightly to Song Feng and asked, Shiqi, who's this? Before Wang Shiqi could speak, Song Feng said, Hello Miss Yusin, I'm Song Feng. I also live in Safe Island. My father is Song Liang, the secretary of the Zhonghai office. He knows your mother and grandfather too. He often speaks highly of the two Professors Su, both your mother and grandfather. Hello, Li Yusin nodded. In fact, she had never heard of Song Liang before. But since the man said his father knew her mother and grandfather, whether or not it was true, she had to be polite. Jiang Lushi, standing by the side, understood immediately. So Li Yusin's mother and grandfather were both professors. A family with two professors would surely have high status in Zhonghai Safe Island. As for Song Feng, though his father sounded like he had a minor position, being a secretary in the Zhonghai office was already a real power-holding job in this place. Much higher up than that so-called local official Jiang Lushi met on the road earlier. Song Feng was also giving off faint waves of mutant energy, clearly an ability user, though not a strong one. Still, it was obvious he was good at socializing. Jiang Lushi, this is my best friend Wang Shiqi, and this is Song Feng, Li Yusin introduced. This is my classmate Jiang Lushi. He helped me a lot before. The other one is Song Qinghui. Nice to meet you, I'm Song Feng said as he reached out to shake hands, subtly sizing Jiang Lushi up. Song Feng had been wanting to get to know Li Yusin for a while, but she didn't like socializing, so he never had the chance. He didn't expect that she would come all the way to Zhonghai District 1 just to see a classmate. When Li Yusin walked in, he had already noticed her, such a beautiful woman would draw attention anywhere. He'd also overheard her talking to Jiang Lushi and knew this scholarly-looking guy was the one she came to see. When Song Feng walked over, he had already sensed that neither Jiang Lushi nor Li Qinghui were ability users. But in Zhonghai, even non-ability users could be very powerful. For example, Li Yusin's family was quite influential and worth networking with. Since he lacked personal strength, Song Feng planned to go into politics, so he needed to build connections. Bro, you live in Safe Island too? What do your parents do? Maybe we know each other, Song Feng asked warmly. Jiang Lushi shook his head. No, I live in Zhonghai District 1. He just arrived today. Probably hasn't even settled down yet, Li Yusin said, glancing at Jiang Lushi apologetically. She knew that the accident involving his parents had been a heavy blow to him, and that was the reason they had drifted apart. She didn't expect that right after reuniting, someone would bring it up again. I see, Song Feng smiled, but his expression turned colder. Not settled? Everyone was settled the moment they entered the city, unless you came to Safe Island after the apocalypse. Which basically meant, refugee. Song Feng had thought the classmate Li Yusin came all this way to meet must be someone impressive, maybe someone worth connecting with. But it turned out to be a refugee with no background. And this kind of person had once helped Li Yusin? Still, getting to meet Li Yusin today was a nice surprise. If he could build a good relationship with her, he might be able to connect with the two Professor Su behind her. Old Professor Su worked at the Research Institute, which had become a major force in Zhonghai and was extremely valuable. Unfortunately, professors rarely interacted with people like him. The only way to get close was through their children. Li Yusin lacked nothing, while her classmate had nothing at all. Thinking this, Song Feng smiled and pulled up a chair. It's rare to run into Miss Yusin and her friends today. This one's on me. What? You're not treating me? Wang Shiqi said, annoyed. Of course I am, how could I not treat our Princess Shiqi? Song Feng said quickly, attentively pulling out a chair. Order, 5 cups of Blue Mountain. Song Feng said. In this cafe, 5 cups of Blue Mountain meant 10 kilograms of grain. Li Qinghui clicked his tongue secretly. Just drinking coffee here would cost an ordinary person a whole month's food. Damn, this wasn't drinking coffee, it was drinking money. If it were him, he wouldn't spend that much, he'd rather take the grain home. Song Feng was good at reading people. He noticed the change in Li Qinghui's expression and felt satisfied. Li Yusin was hard to win over, so he might as well give some benefits to her poor classmates. That was still a way of getting closer to her. But Li Qinghui wasn't very useful. The key was Jiang Lushi. But when he looked at Jiang Lushi, he found that his reaction was quite calm. This refugee either didn't realize how hard it was to get a cup of hand-brewed coffee in the apocalypse, or had no clue what the coffee was worth. Damn, it's like casting flotation at a blind man. Bro, you just got to Zhonghai, do you know what you want to do yet? Song Feng suddenly asked. Refugees who just arrived in Zhonghai were all eager to find a job just to get a meal. But at the trading hall, the only jobs they could find were manual labor. As for the shops on the streets, the work inside was obviously easier, but ordinary people couldn't get in. Helping Jiang Lushi find a job wasn't a big deal for someone like Song Feng, who had many connections, but it was a chance to do Li Yusin a favor. After his brain area evolved, Jiang Lushi could easily catch subtle changes in facial expressions. He saw clearly how the man reacted just now when he heard he had just arrived in Zhonghai. And now, hearing the man suddenly ask this, he couldn't help but find it a little amusing. Not yet, Jiang Lushi said. That wasn't wrong either. He had originally planned to take a look at the trading hall, but before he had the chance, he ran into Li Qinghui. He still hadn't figured out what was what in Zhonghai. Song Feng smiled, thinking, just as I thought, and said, well, what a coincidence today. I came to meet a friend, he's the captain of a small team that's become quite a rising star in Zhonghai recently. Both he and his team are strong, guns and men, all in place. I remember his team is short on people. Survivor squad, that's dangerous, Li Yusin said. Yusinjie, let them talk. It's rare for Song Feng to help with a job, Wang Shiqi said from the side. She had come out of curiosity, and after seeing Jiang Lushi, found nothing special, though he was pretty good looking. After evolving his blood cells and brain area, Jiang Lushi's skin became fairer, his body gained some subtle muscle lines, and his posture was more upright. His eyes looked deep and dark, giving him the vibe of a handsome guy with presence. Too bad that in the past, good looks had appeal, but in the apocalypse, just a face wasn't enough. Helping him find a job, what's wrong with that? Haha, Miss Yusin, don't worry. How could I introduce a dangerous job to our friend here? There are 2 positions. One is a bit tiring, but the pay is good. Heard of mutant beast meat? Song Feng said. Cleaning mutant beast meat, mainly cleaning the organs. A lot of people fight to do this job. It's a few teams hiring together. So bloody, Wang Shiqi showed a bit of disgust, and it sounded gross too. Girls hearing about guts and organs, just the thought was unpleasant. Li Yusin didn't say anything, but she frowned slightly. She felt this job didn't suit Jiang Lushi. Calling it a bit tiring was an understatement, it was exhausting and filthy. What about the other one? Li Yusin asked. Haha, I also think that one doesn't suit our friend, Song Feng continued, the other one just requires helping clean the living space, doing laundry and such. It's lighter work, but the pay's not bad either. I think you could totally handle it. Jiang Lushi smiled. No need. I'll look around myself, Jiang Lushi said. Hearing that, Song Feng wasn't too happy. Doesn't know what's good for him. He had seen plenty of people like this, just hadn't adapted to the apocalypse yet, still thought they were some kind of college graduate. When he hits a wall looking for work, he'll come begging. Beside him, Li Qinghui looked at Jiang Lushi with some anxiety. These 2 jobs were already quite decent, especially that squad, which was an up-and-coming team. He tugged at Jiang Lushi a little, but Jiang Lushi just smiled back at him, showing he had his own plan. Then I wish you good luck, Song Feng said with a laugh. He didn't want to bother with Jiang Lushi anymore and turned to Li Yusin and Wang Shiqi. I'm throwing a party in 2 days, already reserved the pool at Riverside Garden. Will you two beauties come? Li Yusin opened her mouth to decline, but before she could, Wang Shiqi cheered, sure. I heard that pool is really hard to book. Exactly. I begged my dad for a long time before he helped me out, Song Feng said proudly. In Zhonghai Safe Island, besides the mountain villa area, there were only 2 pools. In the apocalypse, with almost no entertainment, young people were all bored stiff. A pool party, they'd be dying to go. Song Feng put a lot of effort into this party. With beauties like Li Yusin attending, the atmosphere would be amazing. Yusin Jie. Wang Shiqi shook Li Yusin's arm. Let's go, let's go. I'm going stir crazy. Li Yusin couldn't resist her. She glanced at Jiang Lushi and Li Qinghui. Song Feng noticed her expression and guessed that she was unwilling to accept the invite in front of them because he didn't invite them. She wasn't the host, so she couldn't invite them for him, she was stuck. Damn. Li Yusin was beautiful, sure, but her kindness was too much. She cared about every little person. Song Feng originally didn't want to invite 2 refugees to his party, but since Li Yusin was popular and had 2 professors behind her, he forced a smile and said, you two should come too. The more, the merrier. Jiang Lushi could see this man didn't actually want to invite him. He wasn't interested either and was about to decline. You guys come too. Besides Shiqi, I won't know anyone else. It'd be awkward. And we haven't seen each other in years, Li Yusin said. She wasn't really into these parties anyway. Shiqi would definitely go crazy, and she wanted someone she knew to be there. She also had things she wanted to ask Jiang Lushi, but with Song Feng around, it wasn't convenient. Well, Jiang Lushi hesitated. Seeing that Li Yusin didn't fit in with that kind of crowd either, he nodded, all right. I won't go. Things are busy with my team, Li Qinghui said. That's a pity, Song Feng said, sipping his coffee without much sincerity. He glanced at Jiang Lushi with annoyance. This guy really didn't get it, and still agreed like he was doing someone a favor. Did he think someone begged him to come? What, does he think he's going to chase Li Yusin? That would be crazy. Even Song Feng never dared pursue Li Yusin. He knew she was proud, and her family might one day move to the mountain villa area. How could the son of a secretary even think about her? He didn't dare dream of it, yet this refugee dared? Then 2 days later, 3 p.m., report my communication code at the safe zone entrance. Song Feng gave his code to Jiang Lushi. After finishing their coffee, it was getting late. Song Feng took out food coupons, paid the bill, and left. He had daily social activities and was basically non-stop. We're heading back too, Li Yusin said. She and Wang Shiqi still had to walk back to Safe Island. It wasn't a short walk. I'll walk you, Jiang Lushi said. No need. You just arrived today, must be tired. Rest early, Li Yusin said, waved her hand, and left with Wang Shiqi. Wang Shiqi glanced back. Once they were far away, she immediately said, Yusin, don't tell me that classmate of yours likes you. What are you talking about? Li Yusin rolled her eyes. This again? Then do you like him? Wang Shiqi asked again. You're too much, Li Yusin didn't even have the energy to respond. I don't think you do, which is good. Look, you even invited him to the party, let it go this time, but don't get too close to people like him in the future, Wang Shiqi said. It's not that I look down on your classmate, but there's too big a gap between you two. If he gets ideas, he'll only end up disappointed. And won't that make you feel bad too? I already said no, Li Yusin pressed her fingers to her forehead and said. Jiang Lushi stood in place and touched his chin. Actually, after activating his bloodline evolution, unless it was intense combat, he didn't feel tired even after walking all day. But he was just trying to be polite. Zhonghai wasn't dangerous. 2 girls walking together, nothing to worry about. Since Li Yusin said no, then fine. Sigh, you shouldn't have agreed to go to that party today, Li Qinghui suddenly sighed from beside him. People from Safe Island, we're not from the same world. We weren't from the same world to begin with, and we never will be. Just look at that coffee today. Li Qinghui shook his head. Here's my communication code. I'm heading out. Contact me if you get the chance. Watching him walk away, hands in his pockets, his steps slightly heavy, Jiang Lushi held the piece of paper with a somewhat complicated expression. That cup of coffee today must have hit Li Qinghui hard. Not from the same world, huh? Jiang Lushi turned his gaze toward the direction of Safe Island. In the distance, tall buildings stood everywhere. Compared to this rural town, it really wasn't the same world. As Jiang Lushi walked back to his residence, several muffled thunder-like booms of artillery suddenly sounded in the distance. Today's shelling isn't as much as the past few days. 2 pedestrians nearby also stopped walking. Both of them gave off a fierce and tough aura. You just got here, so you don't know. It's always like this. Those zombies and mutant beasts increase in numbers every few days, then retreat. Looks like those zombies don't just blindly charge in to die, one of them said with a smile. Then let's go out during this time. Zhonghai is so prosperous, there must be lots of supplies, right? Forget it. Just try hunting one mutant beast. If you're too bold, you won't live long. Every day, the teams that go out of the city, very few come back in one piece. Listening to their conversation, Jiang Lushur looked toward the city wall. The safe zone felt lively and secure, but outside the wall, there were tens of millions of zombies and countless mutant beasts, just separated by a wall. The zombies and mutant beasts he had encountered before would attack madly as soon as they saw humans. But from what the man just said, the monsters surrounding Zhonghai Safe Island actually knew how to avoid direct confrontation and wait until they gathered enough numbers before launching attacks. That wasn't a good sign. However, the defenses of Zhonghai District 1 were strong, and the firepower was fierce. Even with large numbers of zombies and mutant beasts, there was nothing to worry about in the short term. As for the future, thinking of the giant sea monster at Jinling Port, Jiang Lushur felt that what they were currently facing might be just the tip of the iceberg in this apocalypse. And among countless monsters, Zhonghai Safe Island was actually like a lone island. The attraction of these tens of thousands of people to those creatures could be imagined. The trading hall of Zhonghai District 1 was actually the town government building from before the apocalypse, a 4-story building with a large courtyard in front used for parking. Ever since the military and government converted it into a trading hall, it had been bustling with people every day. Early the next morning, Jiang Lushur arrived at the trading hall with Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan. From early morning, the trading hall was packed with all kinds of people. Many were dirty refugees who had just entered the city, team members carrying guns, and some ordinary people standing by the bulletin boards copying things down with paper and pen. Armed soldiers were stationed all over, with a full-strength platoon covering every corner. The bulletin boards were hung from the outer wall all the way to the inside courtyard. Jiang Lushur glanced over. There were probably more than 30. He walked up to one and saw that it was filled with posted tasks. Each task listed a reward. But the tasks were all kinds of different things, with no standardized handwriting. He guessed these were tasks posted by the small teams, as many tasks asked for collecting all sorts of supplies, mostly focused on medicine. Then Jiang Lushur saw 2 boards labeled with sale information. Most of the items being sold were homemade weapons, medicines, and miscellaneous goods. He only took a quick glance at those before entering the trading hall. Just as he entered, he saw a giant board in front. These were tasks issued by the military. High-powered generator, required output 150 kW or above, 1 unit for 3 tons of mutant beast meat. 10 points. What a reward. But finding such specific machinery wasn't any easier than hunting a mutant beast. The 10 points afterward, he wasn't sure what it meant. Medical equipment, see detailed list below. 5 tons of mutant beast meat. 15 points. Gasoline, no purchase limit, high price for large quantities. Inquire for details. Mutant crystal cores. Jiang Lushur saw the price for mutant crystal cores. Level 1 mutant crystal core, 1 core for 6 tons of mutant beast meat. It had indeed gone up. The price of mutant crystal cores was skyrocketing, scarier than real estate prices before the apocalypse. The military only bought crystal cores, they didn't sell them. But at the top of the task board, Jiang Lushur saw a task with mutant crystal cores as the reward. One of them read: Shutdown of Xiangshan Nuclear Power Plant, reward, 5 level 1 mutant crystal cores, 20 tons of mutant beast meat, 3,000 bullets. 500 points. 5 level 1 mutant crystal cores. Jiang Lushur's pupils shrank. This reward was way too high. At that moment, a man standing nearby who was also looking at the board said slowly, jealous, huh? But this task's been posted for days and no one's taken it. I heard a military squad was lost trying it, imagine how hard it is. At first the reward was 3 crystal cores. After the squad was lost, it was raised to 4. Now it's 5. If I had the equipment, I'd try it. But I'll wait until I gather enough gear. Jiang